Oh, you better not pout. You better not cry. You better not shout. I'm telling you why. Santa Claus is coming to town. I know Christmas is over, but too bad. Too bad. You get to listen to me. You get to listen to me sing Christmas carols for no reason at all. Ha 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 ha. While I start this boy up. I'm actually a total laggard on this, and I did not get my Twitch stream set up, or my Twitch thing set up so I can see what's happening on Twitch. So give me 2 shakes of a lamb's tail while I get this all set up. I suspect this is going to be a pretty slow one for people to trickle in. I imagine most people are taking time off or going on vacation or something. And so, perhaps today I'll be talking just to myself. Oh no. Wouldn't that be terrible? Wouldn't that be terrible? Alright. We're getting ourselves all set up here. We did it. How you guys doing? Happy New Year to you, Resist on Twitch. Good to see you. You're actually the first one in, my man. First commenter. Generation Y me. You just missed it by a hair's breadth, a lamb's tail. Happy New Year, generation. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're doing well. We are ringing in the new year with all the classic stuff. Eggs D, good to see you, my man. Hope you guys had a good Christmas. Hope you had a good New Year. My birthday is coming up soon. Turning 41. Yeah, happy birthday. Happy 2024 Dragon Fruit. Good to see you. We made it. We made it. The world will look back at 2023 as the year humanity exposed its inability to tackle climate crisis. Wonka wonk 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 wonk. Start with some good news. That's what I think. All right, let's start with a positive message. Something lovely and nice. That time to take power back from the elites. Seems like. I would actually like to start with something that I consider to be like really quite wholesome. Here's the DPRK having their New Year's celebration. Check this out. Look how lovely this is. Like, it's got like a kind of a wholesome like Amish vibe about it, you know? Like they all learnt this dance together and now they're doing it. Fireworks going off. Everybody having a great time. Of course, you know what the haters are going to say. Right? You know what the capitalists are going to say. Oh, they all learned the dance because they're brainwashed. They're threatened. Yeah, here are the terrified people of North Korea, the brainwashed people. Mikhail, good to see you. Happy New Year. The brainwashed people of North Korea, terrifyingly being forced to celebrate and dance collectively under threat of extermination. I'm sorry, my man. You know the deal. You know the deal, my man. It's $1. It's one fucking $1 in the Patreon. That's all it takes. You're telling me you don't have $1? Come on. Yeah, you're like a super regular, Colin. You're here constantly. If you did indeed send me an email, okay, my man? All the information's right in front of you. I may have just missed the email. It's Christmas, and if you just send me a quick email, I'll 100% send you the link right after tonight's stream. We'll make it happen for you. Cause like Conton, you're like one of the like regulars. You're not like a guy that shows up every so often. You're like, yeah, exactly. You paid the door fee. I feel like it's yeah, I mean, so okay. We all know what this is going to be about. We all know what we're going to be talking about today, right? There's only 3 things to talk about, right? There's the Imperial Wars, which the Imperial Wars have taken a nice little turn, right? Then there's the climate crisis, right, which I've already kind of touched on. And I'm going to let you guys know. I can tell exactly how this is going to go, right? You are not going to tune in. Like, the climate crisis section of this live stream is steadily going to turn into the light section, right? The imperialist wars are going to be the dark section, but the climate crisis is going to become the, like, haha section. Because, like, haha, you know? Because the thing about it is that the imperialist wars are horrible because they're happening to people. Like, it's the empire coming to places and destroying them and stealing their resources, right? That's what makes the empire, discussing the imperial wars, so difficult. But the climate change stuff is going to be like, the New York City subway system is going to be flooded, right? Haha. Like, I'm going to fucking laugh at that. Like, I'm not going to be nice to these Americans. I'm not going to be nice to the empire at all, right? And I understand that there's that wrinkle of like, but regular people, John, are also going to suffer. And I'm like, yeah. I mean, we've had all the opportunity in the world to get in front of this, right? Like, we're all sitting on our hands, right? My position on the climate change crisis is haha. Like, when the subway system floods, when Florida needs to evacuate, right? When Louisiana needs to evacuate, right? Haha. And that's definitely what's going to happen. I just don't have, I can't have sympathy for it anymore. I just can't. Like, I don't know how. It's like there's a guy with like a gun against his head, just being like, talking like everything's completely normal, and he's just like walking around. There's this gun against his head. He's like, "Hey guys, how you doing?" And you're like, "Hey bro, what's with the gun on your head? What gun? What are you talking about? I don't understand what you're talking about." Right? Like, eventually that guy, like, after years and years of being like, one day, like, dude, like, I'm not saying you are going to pull the trigger, but one day, like, you're going to bump into something, or someone's going to bump into you or something, that gun's going to go off. And they're like, "What gun? What are you even talking about?" Like, eventually it's like, gun goes off, guy dies. Like, what? Am I going to cry at his funeral? Like, what am I gonna be sad about this? Like, how am I possibly gonna be sad about this? Right? It's like confusion, mainly. Like, just like, what? So 2, climate change, right? And then 3, the internal imperialist disasters, the domestic disasters. So there's foreign disaster, domestic disaster, and then the climate change disaster. Of course, when I report on the domestic disasters, I report from the Canadian perspective, because I am the Canadian commie. And so, all of that to say, yeah, Westoid's seeing another people with a good sense of community and saying it's dystopian. Yeah. Well, I mean, look, when your idea of a culture is to worship chaos, when everything is just chaos, like, we should all be atomized and separated and backstabbing each other and treating each other like commodities, right? Then looking at any culture and any idea of culture is odd and weird, right? Like, culture is supposed to be you buying culture. You're supposed to buy culture, right? That's how culture works in this society. Someone else makes culture for you, and then you buy it so that you can sit and watch it or play a game or something, right? So you're supposed to interact with culture by yourself in the dark silently. That's culture in the West, right? Whereas if the culture is inclusive, right, if you're all supposed to participate in the culture, if you're all supposed to be a part of the culture, then it's dystopian and creepy and weird, which you can only really say if your perspective is that you worship this chaos god. We won't have forests in Canada anymore by the end of this year. Oh yeah, we'll have forests, but like, shit's gonna go down for sure. Like, the wildfires are gonna be real. I don't know if we should call it so early, but definitely, like, there's gonna be pretty big wildfires, no doubt. I think that forests are pretty resilient. So the forests will probably persevere through all of this nonsense, right? Resist. I buy my culture at the gas station. A pack of smokes and a 6-pack. The best the West can offer. Yeah, that's right. Vote Biden. 4 more wars. 4 more wars. Yeah. My position is the threat of nuclear annihilation is more pressing than climate change as far as our own extinction event. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. If I was a betting man, I would put my money on climate change, for sure. Like I think that like there's a degree of understandability about the nuclear annihilation point. Like I feel like with nuclear annihilation, there's always this like cresting lead up to a decision. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of saber rattling. There's a lot of that kind of stuff that goes on. But at the end of the day, there's like a group of people. It's not one guy with a finger on the button, right? Like that's not how it is. It's got to be like a group of people, an organization of people who push forward with this idea collectively together, right? Like maybe there's one guy who finally says, do it, right? But then everybody needs to follow through with it. And there's the idea that no one's going to mutiny and everybody understands this is the thing to do, right? And so there's like a whole series of events that actually do need to kind of happen before you get to this nuclear annihilation. And because the decision is in somebody's hands to actually push forward with it, an accident is possible, I think. That a device could go off on a small scale sort of way or leak or something like that, right? But I don't think that's going to have the devastating effects of the same. It's not going to have the same kind of effect. It's not going to have the same sort of thing. It's going to be bad. Like it's going to suck. And what's it going to do? It's going to make the climate change crisis, right? It's going to make the climate change crisis unfold faster. Climate change takes away the hope that there's a future worth fighting for. Yeah, don't fight for the future. Like that's not what you're fighting for. That's not what I'm fighting for. That's not what I'm talking about. Like I'm not fighting for some indeterminate future in the future point, right? That's not what I'm here for, right? You guys know me. Like I mean, this I'm the kooky spiritual weirdo guy that talks about theology every so often, right? Like I'm not here for the humans anymore because I just don't think the humans are serious. I just don't think that they're a serious. I don't think they're gonna hack it. Like I just don't. Like. Good job, humans. Like you got to a degree and you came to a point, right? And you pushed the envelope and you made it to a level, right? But lots of signs on the horizon, lots of show on the horizon that says that humanity it is an intellectual dead end. That's an evolutionary dead end. It doesn't actually go where it needs to go to be able to pursue rational objectives collectively, right? Like it's easy to entrance, it's easy to deceive. People are very gullible, right? Everybody gets very entranced by really things that do not matter, things that do not matter, and really get caught up in a lot of like, we got to build meaning and what we're going to build a lasting. Yeah, we're going to do that. And we're definitely going to do that by burning all the fossil fuels and having everybody have a big truck. You know, like just everybody's focused on the wrong thing, on all the wrong stuff. And nobody's taking any of these issues seriously at all. Like at all. There's like a pretend of an attempt at a like, I'm more or less of the opinion now that all of these like COP 24, 28 or whatever, all these conversations and all of this like Justin Trudeau coming up, oh yeah, the carbon tax and all this, all of this is literally quite straightforwardly, it was all a grift. Like maybe you can find well-meaning actors within the conversation. Like, and I do think that like Trudeau and Guilbeault especially, I do think are well-meaning actors, but they're unserious stooges. Right? Like they don't actually understand the seriousness of what's in front of them. If they understand the seriousness of the climate crisis, they certainly don't understand the seriousness of the capitalist death cult, right? They genuinely think that they're going to be able to work within the cult in order to achieve these rational objectives, right? Like it's just not gonna work out. Like it's just not gonna work out that way. There's and like for God's sakes, this last COP28 was literally run by the fossil fuel industry, like the president of the largest fossil fuel company. Climate Town did a really, really good expose on this. If you guys don't know the channel Climate Town, it's a fellow with he does a lot of really good climate change related stuff, and he covered the COP28 kind of fiasco, frankly, very well, and really went pretty in depth into how fraudulent these fossil fuel executives. He always does this, and this is why I love him, right? I forget his name. I think it's like, I forget his name offhand, but Climate Town is the name of the channel. And he always goes just really deep into how like Exxon is completely fraudulent and how they're obviously conning us. And that's basically what it's come down to. That there was never an attempt to take seriously the climate change crisis. What they were doing was population management. That's what they were doing, right? And that once the climate change crisis begins to become serious and actually take hold in a serious way, that it actually begins to impact people in their day-to-day lives, and there's going to be serious relocations, and there's going to be water levels are going to come up, and there's going to be serious militarization in states, and there's going to be like very serious stuff is going to happen, and there's no doubt about it. My hope is that as that very serious stuff starts to happen, the fossil fuel industry, like that's when the fossil fuel industry is going to be taken to task, if it ever is, right? Like it's the only time that it's ever going to be taken seriously at all. Where if any lawyer or judge or if anybody stands up and actually says, well, the evidence isn't in, it's an undecided thing, it's, well, how could they be held accountable for a thing that they knew since the 70s? Like no one's going to take that argument seriously. Like even your 98-year-old dead brain boomer sitting there drooling out of his mouth on a Supreme Court case is going to be like, no, climate change is real. Yup. Like, that's a for sure thing. That's 100% real. The water came up 10 feet. We can't use the New York subway system anymore. That's for sure real. Yeah, they had to evacuate Miami. Like, it's a for real thing that definitely happened. So, but I just think that this like hope for the future idea, like this concept of like we're gonna stop it. Right? We'll figure it out. Like we've got people who are literally saying out loud in public, in serious ways, that if I don't get my big 4x4 truck that guzzles more gas than anything, so I can complain about gas prices, then I'm gonna go to war. Like, this is a dead end culture that leads to catastrophe. It's extremely obvious, and if there is fighting for the future to be done, like if there's a hope for whatever comes after any of this, it's so that we stand and that voices like mine stand as a testament for the catastrophe that we wrought upon ourselves. That was completely avoidable. Like this is the thing that I really think needs to be completely affirmed and understood for future generations and for the future. If you want to talk about the future. This whole thing was completely avoidable. It was easy to avoid. We could have very easily done it. It would have been a simple thing to do. It would have meant we got to play with toys less. But big men wanted to drive big trucks and feel really special about themselves because they didn't know how to handle their own insecurities and their own sexuality, right? They didn't understand how to be a man, and so they cosplayed as one. And the owners of the society, the people with wealth, David Thompson, Jim Pattison, Bill Gates, Bezos, Musk, right? Like these guys were more than happy to sell them that fantasy, right? Because these guys themselves are living in a fantasy world, right? That the system of capital has generated a fantasy world for these people to live in, and they do, right? They just do, and they don't feel like they need to answer to the earth, and so the earth has something to say about it, and it's going to clap back, and it's going to clap back in a big and significant way. And when it happens, all of these guys are going to be exposed as being total frauds, because the most embarrassing part about the climate crisis and the most embarrassing part about the climate catastrophe, and this, if anything, survives from these recordings, if anything survives from the messages that I'm trying to send out into the world, I hope that it is this, that the climate crisis was completely avoidable. It was easy to avoid. We were just acting like babies and children. So if you're looking at this, do not look at us with sorrow. Do not look at us with a sense of grief. Do not look at us with even pity. Look at us as babies who had nuclear bombs, didn't know what we were doing, and fucked it all up. Because that's as simple as that. Like, if we were serious about the climate catastrophe, we would send everybody home. We would shut all of this down. We would certainly stop people like Taylor Swift going around so that she could sing about her fucking ex-boyfriends. Like, come on, guys. Like, come on. Come on. What do you need to see to understand that this is a childish culture for children, right? One of the number one polluters in our society today, in the midst of a climate change catastrophe, is a little girl who's going around the country and the world, no less, polluting wherever she goes so that she can sing to people about how boyfriends treated her badly. This is what we are doing. It's happening right in front of your face. It's very, very clear. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing as shit to be part of this culture and part of this society that's actively destroying itself so thoroughly for nothing. For just total, utter, complete garbage reasons. So that a little girl can go around and sing about how she doesn't like her boyfriends. So that some California surfer dude who looks like Lex Luthor can shoot rockets into space. So that Elon Musk can live out this sort of fantasy of being Tony Stark, and maybe one day his dad will say he loves him, right? Like these embarrassing child people who do not give a shit at all whatsoever about the reality that they live in. Because if they actually gave any shits at all, the only thing that they would actually be talking about is, hey, we got to stop polluting. Hey, wait a minute. It doesn't make any fucking sense at all to pretend like you're going to go to Mars and successfully terraform Mars when you de-terraform the Earth, right? Like, it doesn't make any fucking sense what you're doing at all. It doesn't make any goddamn sense at all to burn all of the fossil fuels so that we can make paper dollars for lunatics. Like, it's embarrassing what we are. It's embarrassing what we've done, and the whole thing was completely avoidable. Completely avoidable. Easily avoidable. It would have been a simple thing to do, right? We even had like dry runs of it. We even had test runs of it, right? This is what we could have done. We could have sent everybody home. We could have stopped with this manic nonsense driving around with these vehicles. We literally could have stopped selling gas. Like, we could have controlled this a little bit better. And we could have started with the people who are polluting the most and then steadily moved down from the people who are polluting the most and gone down the chain until finally you are in the masses of the people. Right? Is that what we did? No. Why not? Because the owners are psychopaths, detached, deranged lunatics who don't care about anything other than themselves. Like, go watch the movie American Psycho and understand that that's what they are. If they're not Christian Bale's character, directly a psychopath going around murdering people, then they're everyone around him, enabling him and allowing him to persist in the world that he exists in. Right? They're protecting him, they defend him, or they just avoid his actions because it personally benefits them, right? Like, we are all that woman. In the movie American Psycho, there's this scene where Christian Bale's character, Patrick Bateman, goes to an apartment where he's been storing bodies, right? It's the apartment of a fellow that he murdered. and he's been murdering people, and he's been storing them in this apartment, right? And he, in a tizzy, in a huff, he thinks that he's been made. He thinks he's caught. And so he's trying to cover his tracks. And so he runs to this apartment in order to try to clean up the scene, only to discover that the scene has already been cleaned up. And he runs in to the landlady, the owner of the property, who's showing the property to people when he arrives. And they have a scene where it's not explicitly stated, but you have to purposefully miss the subtext that she knows who Patrick Bateman is. She knows that when she walked into this apartment and found all of these corpses slaughtered inside of this apartment, and she cleaned up this apartment and got rid of the bodies and took care of everything, she knows that it was this man that did that. No doubt. So why doesn't she report him? Why doesn't she take him to the authorities? Because that is a studio apartment in New York City. That's $1 million for her, at least. At least. And so she looks at this serial killer, Patrick Bateman, and she says, "You best just leave." And he says, "I best." And he does. So she completely covers for him because she doesn't want a crime scene so that she can sell this property and make a lot of money for herself. And that's how the system of capital generates these psychopaths, or at least generates a psychopathic culture. They took hold. They don't give a shit about the climate. They certainly don't give a shit about you. And they don't even give shit about their own children. They don't care. They don't care at all. Like, the only thing that these guys are doing is building like bunkers and shit like Mark Zuckerberg. Zuckerberg is building a bunker in Hawaii, right? And let him die there. Let him run to his bunker and then die there. Let him get killed by his servants, or let him go crazy by himself in this bunker with the torment and the guilt of knowing that we could have completely avoided this if only we had not had these psychopaths. If our entire society and our entire objective and the entire thing that we are would have been much better off without these people. And I hope they die knowing that life would have been better without them, and when they die, things will dramatically improve. Thank you, Cotton. I will definitely respond to that, my man. Yep, private air travel should be completely banned. Yep, celebrities are fine with the planet blowing up. Yeah, they don't give a shit. Like, Taylor Swift is going around singing about boyfriends. Like, that's the level of her cognitive awareness. She doesn't give a fuck about anything. Yeah. It's like that line from Dune. The spice must flow, but it's the line must go up. Yeah. It is telling that they don't want to fly with the rest of us because they don't want to get hurt. Yeah. And we got a fellow on Twitch, Nocturnal Philosopher. And Ohm1932 says, "Yo, solid first comment, Ohm. Good to see you." Nocturnal Philosopher asks, "Evening. What do you think is the greatest flaw of capitalism, and thus the best virtue of communism?" The flaw, the linchpin of the entire operation, what makes this system fail so spectacularly and continue to fail so spectacularly, is that there are two classes that are aligned against each other, right? It's actually different than something like a caste system, right? Or medieval class systems or something like this, because like even feudal class systems had in them the idea to a certain degree that everything was aligned in the same direction. Everyone was facing the same direction. Maybe you had classes, but everybody was more or less looking in the same direction, right? Capitalism aligns the classes in opposition to one another. So the two classes being the ownership class, what communists traditionally call the bourgeoisie, and the working class, or the proletariat. These two classes are in opposition to one another. That what's good for the bourgeoisie is bad for the proletariat, and what's good for the proletariat is bad for the bourgeoisie.
and without exception, they're that should their interests align, it is only superficially. That whatever is good for the proletariat is bad for the bourgeoisie, and whatever is good for the bourgeoisie is bad for the proletariat. And this means that you have a society that is consistently and forever in a deadlocked eternal war with one another. And that is something that nobody ever talks about or actually discusses seriously. That the central ethos and the central structure, not the central ethos, but the central structural point of the society is that there are people who own all of the assets, and there are people who do not have access to those assets, whose only recourse is to sell themselves to those who have the assets in order to secure food and shelter. That this is the central flaw of capitalism. It leads to all of the catastrophes that we have seen, because capitalists make decisions for their own benefit and do not give a fuck about the workers. And if the workers stand up and try to improve their quality of life or try to improve things for themselves, it puts them in direct confrontation every single time. And we see very simply that the strategy that the capitalists are laying out with is to put up a huge fuss for very small, reasonable things. Be as unreasonable as possible every single time. Like the writer's strike should have showed you that, right? Make people go on strike to the point where you're literally saying, like, let's just starve these guys out. We can wait months and months. That's completely fine, right? We can wait a year if we want, right? So that they don't get a 1% increase in wages, right? So that they don't get the most reasonable possible deal that could possibly ever be made by anyone ever, right? And you see this over and over and over again, that the capitalists dig their heels in, do not negotiate, right? Literally say things like, we're going to starve these guys out, forcing the workers to fight. To fight for the barest of minimums, for the tiniest of little things. And my point with all of it is that we should just simply be done with these guys. They should simply not be permitted to be in the conversation any longer. That the elimination of capitalism or of capitalists, owners, the bourgeoisie as a class entirely leads to a dramatic improvement in the society, and that dramatic improvement is almost immediate. That there is debate, grinning guys, for example, saying ML communism doesn't get rid of classes, though. I mean, debatable, but there's but what is not debatable is that that's the central linchpin, that's the central critique of what communism has to say. The process by which we eliminate the bourgeoisie is somewhat up for debate. But no one can deny that there is a complete desire to do so. Because when that happens, and you can see it in other societies, like you can see it in China, you can see it in North Korea, you can see it, right? The needs of the workers begin to get taken care of. The society begins to govern for the benefit of itself as opposed to the benefit of a tiny group of psychopaths, right? And the society aligns itself so that everybody looks in the same direction. So instead of having a crab in the bucket mentality where everybody's just fighting amongst themselves, right, where everybody's just fighting and scrapping for the barest, meagerest survival wage, just trying desperately to make sure that they have enough, terrified of the abandonment that everyone's going to experience in their old age, just trying to make it so that they can make it through this absolute fucking disaster catastrophe that capitalism is laying at your feet. Well, communism removes that, aligns your perspective in the same direction, and says, hey, you've got a temporary fleeting moment here. You're just existing here for just a little bit of time. You shouldn't do so with fear. You should be living here comfortably. You should be able to pursue the things that you are interested in. and you should be able to discuss those things openly and freely without fear of losing food and shelter, which is what it's all about. It's all about the fact that food and shelter has been withheld from us. That a society that is providing food and shelter for its citizens is a society that is trying to take itself seriously. And a society that actively withholds food and shelter from its citizens in exchange for their labor is a slave society that is unserious and is a dead end. It doesn't work because the society is at war with itself. As Abraham Lincoln once said, a house divided against itself cannot stand. And capitalism is a house divided against itself by design, on purpose. It can't stand. That the collapses that are coming because of it are going to be significant and they're going to be serious. We shouldn't pretend like they are not going to happen, because they most definitely are. History will show you very cleanly that when empires begin to fall, the first thing that happens is that satellite countries break up. You can see the waning power of America on the world stage. And so the goal of any organization of any people, even if you're not a communist, right? I don't give a shit if you're like a communist, an anarchist, or whatever name you want to find for yourself. As long as your perspective is that everybody involved in the project is facing in the same direction, working towards the same endeavors, and that everybody has food and shelter, then you're gravy. Then you're gravy. I hope that answers your question. Yeah, Generation Y, why me? Yeah. The good thing about communism is not seeing the profit motive as the ultimate thing. Absolutely. Yeah, Beck's ML communism hasn't had the chance to get rid of capital classes when there is constant barrage of capitalist attacks. Yeah. Mikhail says, while this is true about ML communism, it leaves us with the problem that it can be claimed that we always have the boogeyman to blame when things don't work out. Yeah, but the boogeyman's real. Like, capitalists are real. That their desire to destroy the society and to destroy communists is very real. They're very explicit about it. Like, it's not a secret. Radio, good to see you, my man. Hussein, I'm sure that this means something, but has a new bookshelf. Guy on Twitch. Hi. Hello. If communist states are always in danger from foreign and local forces, how do you deal with security and safety net in case states' power is degrading, fails, basically risk shock therapy, free market? Oh, yeah, okay. Like, that's what communists argue, and we are at odds, incidentally, with anarchists. Anarchists don't think this way. Communists do, and so I'll give you the communist perspective. And I understand why anarchists don't think this way. I just have a respectful disagreement. I do think you need a strong centralized state. I think that you need a vanguard party to take over a strong centralized state, and that strong centralized state needs to respond to the needs of the populace. That the populace, that the key is to purge capitalists, is to erect a dictatorship of the proletariat, and to simply say to the capitalist class, oh, do you own property? Do you own things? Yeah, you're not welcome here. Very straightforwardly. Like, straight up enshrine it in the Constitution. Oh, you own property? Yeah, you're not part of this conversation. Like, it's not even a negotiation. You're just not welcome in the room. Like, that to me is like the level of strength that the centralized state, the dictatorship of the proletariat, needs to have. Like, right now we are caught in this pattern where we think we have to negotiate with capitalists, and it's, I mean, national. Like, I'm like, what, having a structure that responds to the needs of its own public. Like, you just call everything, if you just call it nationalism and then just shrug about it, like, should whatever system you have not respond to the needs of the people? Like, it's kind of confusing, frankly. And this gets into the debate about internationalism versus nationalism and all that kind of stuff and so on and so forth. Like, you want to get onto chapter 23, right? I'm at chapter 1. So, so you do need a strong centralized state to protect from outside interference and outside forces. This is the question the anarchists have never been able to answer, right? They've just never been able to do it. Like, you can have your decentralized state all you want, or your decentralized community all you want. Okay, well, capitalists are going to roll in with a strong centralized state and destroy it, as they have every single time it's been tried. Like, the communist states have shown a lot more resilience. There's a lot more to defend there. That corruption seems to be the major concern, right? Which is why you need to erect structures that actually allow the proletariat to continue engaging meaningfully with the structure, and to ensure that people who are not who are capitalists, right, are just not part of it and are just not allowed in the door. That seems to be the real secret behind it. Now, of course, easier said than done, right? Well, do I own a house? Does that mean I don't get to come in here? Oh, I own this little plot of land over in this corner. Does that mean I don't get to come in here? All this kind of stuff. But the fact, the point and the purpose is that we focus on a system that meaningfully responds to the needs of its own people. Our system does not do that. Our system does not do that. It does not meaningfully respond to the needs of its own people. And it's that gives that structure its strength. It's that gives the structures its resilience. Because once the structure comes under threat, people are willing to defend it. That if the structure is willing to show its usefulness to people, and its willingness to actually respond to people, and its willingness to actually say out loud to people, we are going to listen to what you have to say, and we are going to do something about it, and we are going to attempt to move the society into a better way by listening to what people are saying about it. But like this society, and one of the major failings of capitalism is that the system no longer responds to the people, right? The people who are at the top of it, like, this is the shit that the people who are at the top of it are doing. Like, this is who's leading our society, right? Like, we're not in a place where, like, I'm not. Somebody comes in and tries to, like when that January 6th insurrection happened, right? I wasn't like, oh no, you know, like, I was like concerned, obviously, as one should be, about a major dramatic moment like that. But it's not like the system of American capital is worth picking up a gun. Like, I'm not going to go down there, you know. I'm not going to like pick up arms or anything, right? It's concerning the type of people who launched that insurrection, sure, right? But like, I'm not going to be like blown away by it, right? I'm going to be like, oh my goodness, something has to be done. Like, what about a system that doesn't respond to the people in the first place? Like what's worse than a system that just doesn't respond to the people while simultaneously taxing them, right? Like, revolutions have been staged based on this stuff, right? That's the whole principle of the American Revolution, right? That's the whole principle of it. No taxation without representation. Well, what are we looking at right now? Like, what are we looking at right now? Well, you think when you get taxed that any of that money is benefiting you at all for any reason whatsoever? Nah. Nocturnal Philosopher asks, isn't it rather the lack of greater ideals than mere hedonism that makes capitalism a problem? For example, if you look at a medieval class society, it was a society that in principle also functioned in a capitalist system, but they had shared ideas, religion, patriotism, major art projects, etc. Yeah, unifying projects help for sure. I think that the issue is structural, right? It's a structural issue that the capitalists are building a culture and a society for themselves, right? They're building us, and here it is, right? This is what it looks like, right? They're going to build a culture and a society, right? They're going to build a system. They're going to build ideas and thoughts amongst themselves, and they're going to have their own little culture and their own little party, and you're not going to be part of it, right? Like, they're going to exclude you from it. And and capitalism does have greater ideals, right? I talk about it a lot, right? It worships money. It worships the self, right? That you as an individual is greater than God, right? That's the argument that they actually make, like, literally. That's Jordan Peterson's argument, right? Like, that's what's so baffling and so wild to watch these guys walking around saying a single individual is greater than God. That's their whole pitch. And people just go like, that's right, just get a job. Just bootstrap it. You could do it. Work harder. Yeah, it's you. You can manifest your own destiny. Speak it into reality. You're better. You're stronger than God. Right? That's their whole pitch. And then it's the worship of chaos, what they call the free market. But it's no different than chaos. So capitalism does have principles. It's just that those principles are not often stated. Those principles are not often discussed. Right, and we rarely sit down and critique what those principles are and what they mean and what they and the impacts that they have on the wider society. But those are the principles. Worship money. Money is God. Worship yourself. You are greater than creation. And worship the free market. The invisible hand of the free market will decide. Right. Those are the principles of capitalism. And so hard to see why everything's going chaotically, right? When you got a bunch of chaos worshippers at the helm. And I don't think hedonism is what we're reaching for here, right? We're not trying to paint these people as hedonistic. In fact, I would argue that many of them are not, right? Like the true Christian fascists, like the people in the Republican Party right now, many of them I wouldn't describe as hedonistic. Right? They're just fascists, right? They're Christian fascists. And so the Christian fascists are, the Christian fascists are not hedonistic, right? Many of them, I think, are the opposite, in fact. They're puritanical, right? And they want to spread that puritanism into the society. Like, so To me, the issue is that the ideals of capitalism are anti-human. They run against the real, actual human experience. They venerate a created token that we have generated ourselves, a false god, right? A false god of our own creation, money, and venerate the apostles and acolytes of that, right? And say that, you have all this money, therefore you are good. Right? And it self-justifies in that way. And of course, inevitably you have people who collect a bunch of money because that's the structure. That's the way it works. Right? If you play a game of Monopoly, one person accrues all the properties. That's just how it works. And there's no way to make it not happen. Right? There's just no way to make it not happen. That's how the system is structured. And the only way that you could make it not happen is by literally passing laws to say, like, okay, once you reach a certain threshold, you just take all the money away. You literally can no longer advance in this way. That's the only way to prevent it from occurring. But the trouble with that idea, of course, is that the people who accrue the most wealth in the system are going to do what? Bribe people, right? They're going to bribe people. They're going to corrupt the system. They're going to get involved, and they're going to destroy it from within. Which is why the solution that I think is to be taken seriously is to simply say, yeah, no capitalists. You want to have a bunch of money, you want to have a bunch of wealth, you want to have all of that influence, you want to have all of those assets, you want to have all your yachts and your Bugattis and all this shit. Okay, off you go. If you put a single toe into the political system at all, if you look at the political system, if you buy a newspaper, if you invest in a newspaper, we put you in jail and take all your assets away. Like, I think it needs to be that serious. I think there needs to be a hard line separation. Just like there's a separation between church and state, there needs to be a hard line separation between business and state. And it needs to be that hard line. Straight up, like point number 2 in the Constitution should straight up be like, yeah, if you donate $1, if you're a capitalist and you donate $1 to a politician, we just gonna put you in jail, and that's just the way it's gonna go. Tough. Like, we don't give a fuck. I don't care at all. Like, my whole point is that these capitalists shouldn't exist in the first place. But if you demand so much that they have to, well, then they should definitely not be part of the system. Has a new bookshelf, continues. Yeah, dragon fruit. Tax money goes straight to Ukraine and Israel. If you take over a state, you need bureaucrats. Where do you think you're going to get those from the old state? Literally people from the street, as far as I'm concerned. like literally. Like I'm not that impressed by these guys. Like, they're what they're doing is not that hard. It's kind of like a trolley problem. Would an anarchist end to the state without his drawdown of it more gradually? Would the cause more or less? Yeah, I mean, this is the central thing between anarchists and communists. And as you can tell, I'm not that keen to like go into a big thing about it right now. But that is the central crux. Anarchists want the state to be gone. And they just want to say state gone, right? And communists make the argument that they also would like to see the state gone, but that they don't think it can be done successfully simply by saying state's done, right? And of course, anarchists are skeptical of the intentions of communists, right? That anarchists are skeptical of communists that take over the state and want to use the state to quote unquote benefit the society. That the anarchist position is that the state should be completely abolished, even if communists are running it. So, and that will forever, and because that's the central crux, that's the central linchpin, that will forever put anarchists and communists at odds with one another, right? And I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing that there's this force that exists within the political strata that's saying, okay, when's the state going away? Hey, when's the state going away? What you keep saying that you're interested in the state going away. Hey, when's that happening? Hey, right? I don't think that's such a bad thing. So long as anarchists and communists stay on the same page and work together collectively. Right? That historically there have been moments when anarchists and communists have broken from one another, and there have been joining ups of different parties, and it has led to not good consequences for everybody. And my feeling is that the anarchists and the communists are natural allies, that they are at least cousins in the conversations, if not brothers in the conversations. Like they're little lefty siblings, right? That any single time an anarchist starts to talk about basically anything, I find myself nodding and going along and being like, yeah, absolutely. That sounds great. Absolutely. Like, read anything anything an anarchist writes. And I'm just like, yeah, yep, 100%. But there's this one central issue, and it's a very important central issue that you can't get away from. And so it's going to constantly put communists and anarchists at odds with one another. Which, again, I just don't know. I don't think that's a bad thing. Grinning wants to crypto. Man, crypto. Okay, I'm not going to go on a crypto thing. It's fine. Would-be warlords are bidding their time for an anarchist revolution. Correction, John. Turns out Lauren Boebert is a real baddie. She's not a Puritan. Maybe she wants you to be the one. You guys know my position on Lauren Boebert. I'm not going to restate it too dramatically. She's a weird little Nazi that I would love to take to dinner. has a new bookshelf. I had mentioned you early. I can attest that unfortunately here in Romania, people in most part did the opposite of defending what was good and productive. From the Ceausescu socialist rule, squandered opportunities, remained indifferent with state property, happened to get destroyed. Yeah, I got to tell you, I think that what I've been doing a little bit of reading. You're not the only Romanian who's come in here fairly recently, and so I've been doing a little bit more reading on Ceausescu and what kind of happened. Looks to me like an external capitalist coup, fueled primarily by the emotional angst and lack of faith from the people of Romania themselves. I think the people of Romania are exhausted. That's what it looks like to me. That essentially, if I had to capture the essence of Romania in a single sound effect and a gesture, it would be this. That's Romania. Just it seems to me like the Romanians are over it. Like they're just like, oh my God, this again. Oh my God, okay. Jesus, okay. No, okay. Somebody else coming in and doing something. Okay. Just okay. Just okay. Oh, okay. Okay. And like nobody really understands what's going on. And it's gotten now that to engage meaningfully in politics means that you have to have a fucking degree in economics. You have to have a fucking degree in political science, right? You have to keep reading and you have to be involved in this and you have to make sure that your own perspective is reasonable. And every single person needs to do that, right? Because you have no trustworthy sources anymore. There's no such thing as news, right? That's all. There's no trust. You're literally listening to like Karen. I shouldn't say Karen because that's a whole other thing, but you're listening to like Stephanie from like Lethbridge, who's just tweeting out her opinion about what she's seeing in the world, being like, this Stephanie, she's got it, right? Like that's essentially what this is. It's essentially what I'm doing. I'm just some guy who's looking at the news with a perspective that you don't hear anywhere else, talking about it in a way that rings true to your ear, right? Going like, yeah, that's right. So you don't have any news sources, right? Nobody trusts anybody. There's nobody that you can look at and be like, oh yeah, okay, 100%. Like CBS News, absolutely, I'll watch that, right? Fox News for sure, 100%. And our economists are dimwits. They're like completely detached priests who don't actually give a shit about what the point of their entire profession is, which is to improve the quality of life for the people who are being governed by it. That's not the point of economics. The point of economics is personal enrichment and the enrichment of the people who fund you. That's the point of economics. That's why you get an economics degree. You don't get an economics degree to understand economics in a serious way. You get an economics degree to enrich yourself and anybody who wants to give you money. And like that's Milton Friedman to a T. And so the John, take her to Beetlejuice. Yeah, I should. Absolutely. And so under those circumstances, like what hope does the proletariat have? What hope does the population have? Who can they turn to? Who can they listen to? And that's why you end up with like guys like Andrew Tate. That's why you end up with guys like Ben Shapiro, right? Because these guys have money, are well funded, they feed off of each other. Right, they fuel a Nazi zeitgeist that exists in the human spirit, and they're well funded. They've got well funded backers. They talk about how much money they have all the time, right? And and so you've got this like crazy Nazi zeitgeist, a disruptive disinformation system funded by like the CIA and by Fox News and all this kind of stuff. And what does that leave on the left? It just leaves assholes like me basically just being like, okay, this is what I think is going on, guys. This is what I see out there. And we can have a discussion on it. We're trying to plant our feet on what is real and trying to have serious conversation about what we're doing and how to move forward in a way that's cogent and makes sense. Right? Okay. Tough odds. Tough odds. And so it makes sense that huge sections of the populace would just become like, okay, I'm just going to go to work. Like, work a full-time job and then also contend with all of this shit. Right? That the best that the proletariat does for the most part is what you guys are currently doing, which is finding somebody who has sacrificed a lot in order to get themselves into a position to be able to do this. Like that's the best. This is the best that I can give you. Right? And because I think it's the best you're going to get. Like and that's the state of the society that we find ourselves in, that everyone's mainly exhausted. It's mainly exhausted. June, good to see you. Good to see you, June. Nocturnal philosopher, I would rather say that individualism is the problem. Yes. I mean, individualism is the worship of the self. That's how I articulate it, right? Individualism is the idea that a single individual is more powerful than every other individual that exists in the society, that every other individual that has ever existed in the society, that every institution that has ever existed and currently does exist, and then also all of the powers of the universe themselves. That's the ideology of individualism in a nutshell, right? And so I don't call it individualism, I call it the worship of the self. Because it is worship. Like, you believe that you're more powerful than God. That's the belief. Like, an unbelievable belief system. That's very convenient. It's a very convenient thing for the richest person in the room to stand up and say, I got here by myself because I'm the best. And you can do it too. You just need to think like a champion or whatever. Forget about all of the help that they got. Forget about all of the institutional help. Forget about all of the systemic help. Forget about the, like, literally generations of generation and generation of accumulated wealth. And in many cases, things like fucking like slave mines and shit like this, in order to get them born into a position where they're at that thing, where they're at this apex in the first place. And then they're like, I climbed the meritocracy because I'm so super smart. Like, very convenient ideology. But I do think it's still only possible. It's still possible to have, but I do think it is still possible to have a non-individualistic society operating within a capitalistic system, as long as there are large shared projects and ideals. Ultimately, you could argue that the lack of these big projects and ideals, i.e. nihilism, is the new big problem. I disagree with that because the capitalist system, as I said earlier, fights itself, right? Like if any new project shows up, it's a project for the rich at the expense of the poor. And if the poor, the workers rather, begin to organize any project for themselves, it will be for them at the expense of the wealthy, right? There was a moment, because of the New Deal and because there was a certain degree of egalitarianism that had existed in America, where the culture had configured itself so that the working class and the proletariat was creating art and projects for itself. You can take a look at all the films from the 70s and the 80s, 60s, 70s, and the 80s, right? You had enormous cultural projects and enormous cultural films, enormous, huge blockbusters. The comedies in the 80s are the greatest thing to look at. Most of them are anti-capitalist to the core. Most of them, the major victim rather villain of the piece is some rich guy, right? And the rich guy is always the butt of the joke, and the rich guy is always the guy that falls into the water. The rich guy is always the guy that is haughty and says, you're not going to get away with this, and like, and so the rich guy gets it in the end, right? Well, all that's gone, right? All that's gone. And why? Because the rich took over the culture, and now they make it for themselves, right? That art doesn't get made for the workers to enjoy and to revel in. Right? Like, you'll never get another Al Bundy, you know? That's never going to happen. When Al Bundy showed up again, he was in Modern fucking Family. Right? You're never going to get another piece of art from these guys that's actually going to attempt to meaningfully articulate anything meaningful about the working class experience. Like, it's just not going to happen. Because art doesn't get created for the benefit of the proletariat or the workers anymore. Art gets made to sell to those guys. And the wealthy and the rich are well aware that what they're doing is propaganda. They know for sure. So you're never going to actually get a show or a movie or a film or anything that comes out that says, hey, capitalism sucks. Being in capitalism sucks. Here's a meaningful articulation of how it sucks. maybe we should do something about it. It's just never going to happen, right? And the reason why that's never going to happen is because of the structure of capital, the way that it is aligned against itself. You can't have cultural projects. You can't have meaningful culture because you will always end up with two cultures that are aligned against one another, even if they share the same iconography and the same ideas and the same thoughts and the same pictures and the same symbolism and the same stories and the same kind of thing. They will always be aligned against one another. Because in any story that gets told in the system of capital, there's a hero and there's a villain. And one of them is the hero and one of them is the villain, right? And in a capitalist society, it either means that the worker is the hero or the worker is the villain. And it means that the capitalist is their foil. And there's no getting away from it. That's the structure. There's no story that exists that is credible, interesting, or honest that you can tell where a worker and a capitalist work together to achieve a collective goal. It doesn't exist because that's not the relationship. And if somebody tried to make it, everybody would watch it and be like, that's fucking bullshit. And everybody would know it. So this idea that that sure, we can keep doing capitalism, the problem is large cultural projects, I think is completely false. If you attempted to do some kind of major project under the system of capital, it would fail. You would just give it a different look. You would just ensure that, like, Harry Potter, we're going to make Harry Potter, and Harry Potter's going to take over the society, and it's Harry Potterism, and everything's Harry Potter now, right? And wizards and magic and all this kind of stuff. Well, okay, you're not a capitalist, right? You don't relate to capitalists or capitalism in any meaningful way. Capitalists are going to relate to different characters and different people within the structure of that story than you are. And chances are good that, like, a capitalist is going to see themselves more in Slytherin than you, right? Chances are very good that that's the case. And so the even if you manage to push a cultural artifice into the public and onto the public to the degree to which they accept it and move forward with it, it's still an antagonistic relationship, and it can't be changed. Because, well, it should be changed, but you're not going to change it by saying, hey, a new culture is going to come in, or a new project or something. And the big truth is that you can't, like, why do you think America refuses to do healthcare? Why do you think they refuse to do basic things? Right? Like, just basic things. Because there's money to be made harvesting the poor. Right? There's money to be made by treating the working class as cattle, as stock, as a commodity. Right? Like, we're a commodity to these people. You can't build a successful culture on that. They view us as an object for them to make money with. And that relationship is never going to change. Right? You can't and you can't meaningfully, like, why do you think the culture for the last fucking 20 years has been all this Marvel garbage? Right? Just this absolute Marvel trash. Right? Because they don't know what else to sell us. Right? We're entranced by superheroes right now. Right? Which might as well be like a new pantheon of gods. Right? We're just like, oh, Thor. Right? Oh, wow, the god Zeus. Oh, did you see that Odin made an appearance? We're just easily distractible. But we're starting to lose interest in it. Because all of those 20-somethings who were growing up like, oh, Marvel movies are starting to happen. Oh my God, did you see that there was an X-Men movie? Oh man, it was pretty good. Yeah, that Spider-Man movie, Tobey Maguire, was really nice. And then they just kept remaking it. They just fell into a cultural feedback loop. And they made 3 Spider-Mans not just 3 Spider-Mans, but 3 Spider-Man franchises to the degree where they were able to make a movie and cast all 3 of those Spider-Men in that movie, right? Like, that's the degree to which the cultural feedback loop, where we're just remake over and over and over and over again. We're just taking out Spider-Man and putting in Iron Man. We're taking out Iron Man and putting in Doctor Strange, Thor, Hulk, and it's the same movie, Captain America, and it's the same movie. And then we make a movie about those movies. And then we make a movie about the making of those movies. And then we make a TV franchise about the making of those movies that we made. And then we tell a story, dark, gritty realism within the framework of the story that we told, right? And we're just caught in this imagined world that is a cultural feedback loop. And people are sick of it because they're beginning to realize that it's pointless. That these stories are meaningless. They have led to nowhere. Right. There are two major cultural moments within this culture that should tell you that this whole thing was a farce. You should be angry about it. You should be upset about it. Right. The Avengers Endgame was an insult. Anybody who watched that film walking out being like, "Wow, I loved Avengers Endgame," that's a person whose opinion you get to dismiss from now on forever. That they are in the position of learning how to be a person, right? If you watched Avengers Endgame after they made 3 fucking Iron Man movies, goddamn 2 Captain America movies, 2 Hulk movies, 3 Thor movies, and this whole apex up to this idea, and then they did a trilogy of Avengers movies, then you climb the apex and climb the apex and climb the apex so that they could do a time travel retcon story. And if you walked out of the theater going like, man, that was really worth the time and effort I put into that, then you're a dumb person who needs to no longer talk. Like, that's a stupid thing to think, and it's a stupid story to tell. And how dare they? How dare they waste the time of our culture with that trash? How dare they, when they had the attention of the entire planet, instead of saying anything meaningful, instead of even attempting to say anything real, instead of attempting to wrap it up in a way that actually said something about the human condition meaningfully, they literally went... and told us to eat it. And a lot of us did. So that should have been a moment when you went, oh yeah, this is a dead culture that is not interested in saying anything meaningful. This entire film franchise can be deleted from the consciousness of humanity. That they're gonna fade out like Westerns did, right? And we're just gonna forget about them. Like we already fucking have, basically. These are just like comic book pictures of our childhood now. And then the second cultural moment from all of this trash that should have just convinced you that these people are completely untrustworthy, that you should have just walked away from the table, is what they did to Luke Skywalker. They took one of the, if not the greatest American hero, right? An American icon who laid down his sword in front of his father and faced death, who turned his own father from the dark to the light in an act of sacrifice, and they turned him into a tired old man who tried to kill a little boy in his sleep because he had a bad vibe about it. Like, this is betrayal. This is betrayal not just of the character, this is betrayal of the actor and the audience. It is betrayal on the highest possible level, and they told you to your face that we do not give a fuck what you think about anything. Eat the slop. Eat the slop. Live in the cultural feedback loop. Die here. Capitalist realism. Just watch the pretty lights and don't think about it. And a lot of us do. That's your culture. That's the culture of capitalism, and it will always be that way. It will always be that way, because the people who ascend the system of capital, the people who climb the meritocracy, right? The people who climb the ladder of capital are psychos. They don't know how to relate to people. They don't know what stories need to be told. They don't care about icons or symbols or heroism or justice or truth. And they have nothing to say. And they've shown that to you in explicit, dramatic ways. Major ways. They've spent billions and billions and billions of dollars to tell you that they don't give a fuck about you and I hope you die. Fuck your heroes. Fuck any concept of basic storytelling. Dangle the keys. Watch the keys, little baby. That's your fucking culture. And if you're going to stand in front of me and say, I think that capitalism can live with culture, you're wrong. They've proven it. They spent 20 years proving it to you. Like, I don't know what you need. This whole thing has been a fucking embarrassing. It's been a fucking embarrassment. We're just like, are we still here for this? Are we still doing this? Well, it's not going to advance because we're in a cultural feedback loop. They're just going to keep giving us the same slop and telling us to eat it until eventually we won't. But then they won't know what to do. And so they'll just put a different face on it. And you know what the different face is going to look like, guys? Do you know what the next phase of all of this is going to be? It's going to be children's toys. Thanks, Barbie. It's going to be strawberry shortcake. It's going to be the Smurfs again. Right? It's going to be it's going to be the Cabbage Patch Kids. It's going to be children's toys. It's going to be the next phase of this garbage. And it's going to be the exact same thing. They're going to try to capture the culture with the exact same nonsense to capture the feedback loop. How do I feel? I feel great. I'm a little tired. Because my dog woke me up too early. No, I'm just expelling the demon, man. Like this is just ringing a bell and expelling the demon. That's what it is. It's just getting the fucking demon out. Cause like nobody talks this way. Nobody talks this way about this dead culture, this failed society. Everybody's still walking around being like, maybe we could negotiate with it. You're not going to negotiate with it. like the waters are going to come up. Like, what, you think you're going to negotiate with that? What, you think the capitalists are going to get nicer? Like, how do you think this is actually going to go? Dude, not enough mana. I love your name. You must build additional pylons. Well done. What do you think about the following series? Billions. I'm not that familiar with it. Gossip Girl. I mean, Desperate Housewives is like a lot of that's like just kind of porn, honestly. Like mainly just like familial porn. Like just and I don't mean like a stepsister, but I mean like in the same way that something like Full House is just like a wholesome sort of fantasy world for someone to get lost in. Like, I wish my family was like this. That's what Full House is all about, right? It's the inversion of that. It's oh, your family's, oh well, it's this other thing where they're all dramatic and horrible, and it's like your family is never as horrible as that, right? They're never that bad. So it's childishness on both sides. It's and I shouldn't say childishness, but it's fantasy on both sides. It's either reveling in the faux fantasy of all your problems are things like too many boys like me, right? I've got too many houses. So many options to buy. I don't know which high-powered job I should go for, right? Those are the problems. Or the other inversion of it is we've got to hide the body. We can't let them know that we killed that guy, you know? So it's fantasy on either side. And there's nothing wrong with fantasy. Like that's fine. Neil Gaiman really convinced me that to change my tune on escapism. And it was he said one thing, and it just was like, oh, that like it resounded with me, and it like really struck a bell with me, which was the only people who don't want others to escape are jailers. And that was just like a little moment of like, oh my God, yeah, like of course, like if somebody needs to escape and find fantasy and escapism, then let them. Yeah. Mikhail, new movies this year: Mean Girls remake, Dune Part 2, Despicable Me 4, more King Kong Godzilla, another Gladiator movie, another Kung Fu Panda. Yeah, very not original. Jacob 1. Last time I proved you capitalism brings global progress. Womp womp womp. Literally, I've got something up that says Israeli bombardment destroyed over 70% of Gaza homes, and this guy's talking about how capitalism brings global progress. Just embarrassing. As good a segue as any. Netanyahu says Gaza war on Hamas will go on for many more months. Thanks, U.S. Thanks, U.S. for the weapons sales. Here's a good chart. Almost 80% of buildings in northern Gaza may have been damaged. Here's the destruction. Here's your global progress. Global progress report, everybody. Thanks, Jacob. Thanks for reminding us about the global progress that capitalism is putting forward. Let's ask Libya about the global progress. Taboo, Penny Dreadful, Masters of Sex. Masters of Sex. Well, has a new bookshelf. It's getting saucy over there, has a new bookshelf. I think Has a New Bookshelf is trying to make porn the new culture. What do you think, guys? Huh? Can't be worse than what we're doing. Yeah, here's this is something I really wanted to show you guys. Here is a clip that a lady put together. This is a class in Israel. Actual children in Israel. Oh, is the video not going to play? Oh, did the video get taken down? Did they get the video? They took it down. Get down! Maybe if I hit play right away. Yeah, here we go. Here's an actual class in Israel. Listen to what the kids have to say.
But more so, look at the expressions and the reactions of the adults in this video.
Who thinks the temple will be built in a few years? Oh, Al-Aqsa Mosque. What will happen to the mosque? It will collapse, explode, and disappear. Where'd you meet the Arab kid? Near the temple. Did you talk to him? They feel angry and they want to kill them. They feel sorry for secular Jews. This kid literally said, everybody will be a religious Jew, there will be Arabs, but they will be slaves. This kid literally just said, in front of his teachers and in front of his classmates, there will be Arabs, but they will be slaves. Here's global. Jacob, Libya and Iraq, living quality and economy is increasing. Jesus Christ, dude. Just embarrassing. We went in there and murdered 1 million people and destroyed their economy and warlords took over, but capitalism's good, actually. Because they refuse to live in squalor, right? The people there are doing anything in the face of overwhelming capitalist destruction, and so you have capitalism to thank for that. Like, dude, brain dead. Like time to actually stop talking. Like, for real. Like, brain dead, dude. Like Nazi apologist level. You understand? Like, do you understand what I'm saying to you right now? What you just said there? Libya and Iraq living quality and economy is increasing is literally hand-waving away a capitalist atrocity. Literally saying, we killed 1 million people in Iraq, hand-wave it away. Nah, whatever. No, doesn't matter. No, who doesn't matter? Yeah, bye-bye. We just don't need this guy around. Too stupid. Too stupid, my man. Like, basic. Too dumb to talk to anymore. Read anything. Find empathy in your heart. Learn what empathy is. Learn how to find out what empathy is. Attempt to connect to somebody in a way that sparks empathy inside of you. And maybe stop putting your opinion forward because you sound stupid. Like a very stupid person. Get the fuck out of here. Yeah. Well, the conflict in Libya is not over, just eclipsed and forgotten by other conflicts. Yeah, not like our news media talked about it. Right? The news media is really grabbing a hold of the Israeli crisis, right? Like the news media, well, not the news, the social media, frankly. I think that Libya just fell like right before social media took over in a meaningful way. Like if social media had have been as entrenched as it is now, we would get the same stories out of Libya. Libya's a disaster, right? And losers like Jacob just come in here hand waving it all away, saying that it's actually a capitalist success. They're better off. No slavers have ever said that before. Just like fucking these dim-witted stupid morons that come in here and clutter my chat with their dumb garbage. Like, for fuck's sake. Gabriel, Marvel tells us buff white men will destroy foreign aliens and restore traditional values. Yes. I didn't even touch on the fact that they're proto-fascist, right? That they're literally like, things that are foreign are scary, right? But they're like, they're still like Team Diversity Squad. You know what I mean? So like that to me is the true success of the rebranding of fascism into neoliberalism. Is that they rebranded fascism into neoliberalism, but then they said, but Team Diversity Squad, right? So all the same rules and all the same thoughts as fascism, but just let there be a black guy in there. Right? Isaac, I tuned in late. Are we still dealing with dumb people? Never ending, my man. Never ending. Like, there's a difference between somebody who comes in and is like, you know what, I disagree with what you're saying, and I have some points, and I'd like you to talk to those points and address them, and just a stupid person. Right? Like, and we can tell. I've had people in here who've challenged what I have said and had intelligent things to ask and wanted points addressed. But then when they had those points addressed, they were like, oh yeah, okay, I see more where you're coming from, right? If you're just going to deny the destruction of Libya and Iraq and just hand wave it away, get the fuck out of here. Like, you're too stupid to talk to. Or just a Nazi, right? You get to pick which one you'd like to be. Dude, this has a new bookshelf. He's trying to make porn into the new culture. And I gotta tell you, has a new bookshelf. I'm with you. Let's do it. Let's make porn the new culture. It can't be worse. Masters of Sex, details on Rotten Tomatoes. Master of Sex is based on Thomas Mayer's book of the same name, which profiled the pair William Masters and Virginia Johnson. They are known as pioneers of the science of human sexuality. Their research shoots them to fame on a trajectory that takes them from humble beginnings in the Midwest to the cover of Time magazine. Masters is a brilliant scientist who's out of touch with his own feelings. Johnson is a divorced mother who's ahead of her time on many fronts, including her determination to have a meaningful career. The pair's relationship isn't just professional, as it evolves into a three-way marriage with Masters' wife, Libby. 84% average tomatoer rating, 85% average audience score. Sounds great. Sounds like a good time. Right? I think I kind of know about this movie, actually. Is it with, what's his name? Is it with, I'm a man with many skills. You know who I'm talking about. I have a particular set of talents. This guy. Who's this guy? I'm a tough guy with a big face, and I talk like this. And if somebody says something wrong to me, you know that I'm going to punch him in the face. Big, tall, Irish, thuggish kind of guy. But you like him. Who am I talking about? Michael Sheen, Lizzie Cappion, Keslin Fitzgerald, Anna Ashford, Teddy Sears. No, not John Cena. John it's oh damn, I hate this. He's like a very popular actor. Liam Neeson. Nope. That has a new bookshelf. It's like, no, Michael Sheen, Lizzie Cappian, Caitlin Fitzgerald, Annaleigh Ashford, Teddy Sears. I don't know. It sounds interesting. It sounds like one of those movies that nobody actually watched. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure like enough people watched it, so it like probably made its money back, right? And probably made a little bit of money, but like it's not the heart of the culture, you know? Like those sorts of films have always been made. And one hopes that what happens is that a film like this gets made, and then like 10, 20 years later, people are like, that was really good. Like we should pull that forward, right? That's sort of the goal with a lot of this stuff is to keep pulling it forward so that certain things stay alive. Certain movies and certain media and certain things stay alive and build up over time, and then there are resurgences and things like this. That's sort of the hope. And so like stuff like this, no, my man. Like I'm sure it's done well for itself. Okay? Like what's a huge successful series? Like The Avengers is a huge successful series. Like a 3-year run, 2013 to 2016. Yeah, like, and I bet it's good. Seems like people like it. So, but like not the heart of the culture. Like maybe it'll show up in a meaningful way and like. Sorry. Maybe it'll show up in a meaningful way if you just keep plugging it. Sounds interesting. Like, don't get me wrong. That was a nice little distraction. Oh yeah, this is another good one. Guys, this one's actually amazing. I think I've shown this one before, but it's definitely worth it's definitely worth showing again. I gotta catch it right before, for some reason. Like, literally, what you are about to hear, and I'm so sorry, is Israeli children sing, "We will annihilate everyone in Gaza. We are the children of the victory generation. Autumn night falls over the beach of Gaza. Planes are bombing. Destruction, destruction. Look at the IDF is crossing the line to annihilate the swastika bearers. In another year, there will be nothing there. We will safely return to our homes." Like, this is a thing that is happening that we are funding. That's my favorite. I think my favorite part about this whole thing is that they're literally telling us, work hard so that we can tax you to commit a genocide in Israel. And if you don't, you're the lazy one. Like, you're the degenerate if you don't want to work so hard that you get taxed to participate in this genocide. Like, we should all get together and just stop paying taxes. And just basically say, like, no, tough shit. Like, it's not going to happen. We're just not paying taxes. Like, that would be amazing. The entire society just, like, falls into a complete and total rebellion. Just ceases to pay taxes. Because it's like, and I don't know why anybody would. Like, what are you getting? What are you getting? Content, come on, Cotton. We did it. We already got it. Liam Hemsworth, Leonard Nimoy. No. So some actual news on this front. Israel is pulling thousands of troops from Gaza in a possible precursor to a scaled-back offensive. Literally, they're losing this war. Like, that's really what's happening. They're losing, right? They don't know what to do. They're too green. They don't know how to fight this thing. Hamas has been preparing for a long time and is ready for the fight, and Israel isn't. And now Israel's beginning to lash out to its neighbors. I've been reading reports about Israel dropping bombs in Syria, Lebanon. Like, these guys are pissing everybody off. And it could come to a head. It could be a very serious thing that happens in Israel if they keep acting this way. Yeah, Israel won't last another 20 years. I mean, my position on a lot of this, like, this, if the Israeli Jews, the Zionists, actually cared about their Bible, right, their Torah, if they were actually religious in the way that they pretend like they are, right, they would be paying heed to their prophets, right? That there are prophets in the Old Testament that are very much outspoken about, like, phrases like "woe be to Israel," things like, "Hey, what we're doing is going to lead to our destruction," and that's actually true, right? Or they're preparing to invade Lebanon. What a disaster that would be for them. What a disaster that would be for them. They can't handle the people of Gaza, right? What, you think they're going to handle Lebanon? I think that would be a complete and total disaster for Israel. I don't think that they would last very long. Yeah, they wouldn't be bombing literally fucking Bethlehem. Yeah, although they're Jews, they're not Christians, so fuck Jesus. Hey. Has a new bookshelf in regards to his previous pitch for Masters of Sex. I think conservatives should be made to see it. Yeah, I think conservatives should be made to basically watch anything and read anything, right? Like, I feel like conservatives are pretty isolated, right? I mean, once you attain a certain level of wealth, you don't need to actually seek anything. You can just sort of stay isolated in your ideological system. And you get to, like, pretend like you're offended at things. Like, they would probably watch something like that and just be like, that's liberal degeneracy. And it would just entrench them in their position even more. Right? Like this is a common flaw that I see happen amongst left-leaning people and people on the left, is that they tend to think that the people on the other side of the political aisle think like they do, right? And they don't. Like, we see this over and over and over and over and over and over and over again in history, that leftists give fascists especially the benefit of the doubt, assuming that there's a basic sense of humanity, and there just isn't. There just isn't. And fascists will take advantage of that. And it's like, if you show people certain types of media, you sort of expect them to have empathy for the characters, but they end up not. They end up not having empathy for the characters, and they just think they're degenerates. I think they do pay heed to the prophets. I mean, yeah, like, they worship the money. So if you're rich, you're good, right? If you're rich, you're good. This is actually a big story, and I think it was you, XD, put the actual filing in the Discord. South Africa files a genocide case against Israel at the World Court. It's appropriate that it would be South Africa that would file this genocide case against Israel at the World Court. South Africa having recently been an apartheid state. Some argue it still is in many ways. Still struggling out of that period of time. Now suing Israel for erecting the same system inside of its own borders. South Africa asked the International Court of Justice on Friday for an urgent order declaring that Israel was in breach of its obligations under the 1948 Genocide Convention in its crackdown against the Palestinian group Hamas in Gaza. The ICJ, sometimes known as the World Court, is the United Nations venue for resolving disputes between states. Israel's foreign ministry said in a reaction that the suit was baseless. Yeah, it's only all of your leaders, right? It's only everybody fucking saying that they want to commit a genocide. South Africa, like, I'm literally showing videos about children saying how we want to cleanse the area, for God's sakes. South Africa's filing alleged Israel was violating its obligations under the treaty drafted in the wake of the Holocaust, which makes it a crime to attempt to destroy a people in whole or in part. It asked the court to issue provisional or short-term measures ordering Israel to stop its military campaign in Gaza, which it said were necessary in this case to protect against further severe and irreparable harm to the rights of the Palestinian people. No date has been set for the hearing. While the ICJ in The Hague is considered the UN's highest court, its rulings are sometimes ignored. In March 2022, the court ordered Russia to immediately halt its military campaign in Ukraine. Israel rejects filing. Yeah, did the UN did The Hague ever try George W. Bush or Obama? Any big court orders coming out of The Hague about Obama or W? No? Huh. Weird. War began on October 7th, the beginning of history, when militants in the Islamic group Hamas killed 1,200 people at a cross-border attack on Israel and seized 240 hostages by Israel's court. Israel responded with an assault on Hamas-ruled Gaza, killing more than 21,000 people, Palestinian health officials say. In a first response to South Africa's suit, Israel's foreign ministry blamed Hamas for the suffering of Palestinians in the Gaza Strip by using them as human shields and stealing humanitarian aid from them, accusations Hamas denies. Israel has made it clear that the residents of the Gaza Strip are not the enemy and is making every effort to limit harm of the non-involved, the ministry statement said. Here's them minimizing the harm. This is them. 61% to 80% of the buildings in North Gaza, 69% to 80% in Gaza itself, 23% to 30% in Deir al-Balah, Khan Yunis, 32% to 42%, Rafah, 15% to 22%. That's the buildings that have been destroyed. Like, if these capitalists won't respond to body bags, maybe they'll respond to property destruction. You can't blow up buildings. That offends my constitutional right to have people be on the... Generation Y Me. The Hague mostly only tries black people. Yeah, that's pretty tough, but it's true. They did the Nazis one time, right? So is it like if you... So it's all black people, but if you become like super white, like super on the white spectrum, do you loop back around? Is that how that works? That's a joke in poor taste. But you know what? I stand by it. I stand by the work that I do. So, like, this shit is wild. Israeli bombardment destroyed over 70% of Gaza homes, from a report. Experts say the besieged strip is unrecognizable, and its bombing is the most destructive in modern history. Israel has made it clear that the residents of the Gaza Strip are not the enemy, and it's making every effort to limit harm to the non-involved. Wah, 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 wah. Wow, has a new bookshelf. Really living up to your name, has a new bookshelf. Any thoughts on the book named North and South by Elizabeth Gaskell? No. Why don't you tell me all about it? I feel like Has a New Bookshelf just wants to talk about good literature and good television that they've been seeing. I hope so. Please, for the love of God, I need good recommendations. Like anything, because like this is a dead culture. It'd be nice if we actually wanted to do culture, in a meaningful way. Looks like we've got one person in the chat who's just like, hey, I read a good book. Right? I'm over here like listening to books written by economists and shit. I don't really like fiction that much. I got to tell you. I find that when I start delving into fiction, I get bored very easily because the world is more interesting. Like really, like the world is a much, much more interesting place. And so I spend my time reading a lot of this stuff. This is what I read. But please, Palestine, whose statehood is contested, but seen by the courts as having observer state status, said it welcomed South Africa's suit. The court must immediately take action to protect the Palestinian people and call on Israel, the occupying power, to halt its onslaught, the Palestinian Foreign Ministry said in a statement. The court application is the latest move by South Africa, a critic of Israel's war, to ratchet up pressure after its lawmakers last month voted in favor of closing down the Israeli embassy in Pretoria and suspending diplomatic relations. In a statement from South Africa's Department of International Relations and Cooperation, the government said the application against Israel was filed on Friday. Israel, since the 7th of October 2023 in particular, has failed to prevent genocide and has failed to prosecute the direct and public indictment to genocide, Durko said in a statement. South Africa has backed the Palestinian cause for statehood in Israel-occupied territories for decades, likening the plight of the Palestinians to those of the black majority in South Africa during the repressive apartheid era, a comparison that Israel vehemently denies. A different court in The Hague, the International Criminal Court, is separately investigating alleged atrocities in the Gaza and the West Bank, but has not named any suspects. Israel is not a member of the ICC and rejects its jurisdiction. Yeah, big surprise. Nazis reject jurisdiction of court. Oh yeah, this is something I definitely wanted to read aloud. I said earlier that there are like three things that I talk about. One is the imperial wars, then there's the domestic collapse of capital, and then there's climate change. But there is a fourth thing. There is a fourth thing that when I find it, I try to remember it and I try to bring it to the fore, which is truthful articulations, whether that be through art or whether that just be from somebody writing their thoughts. Truthful articulations about what it is like to live in a collapsing society. Anyone around age 40 who is starting to do better is the title of this. My 41st birthday is around the corner. Yeah, mine too. I have my birthday in 4 days. I'm single. Living back with elderly parents. No friends or social life. It became too exhausting to even attempt to have a good time or make friends. All I do is my work from home job that only pays $15 an hour, and I'm in debt. After work and days off, I just don't have any motivation to do anything but isolate myself. I do have moments where I feel like I'm motivated to really make effort to change this mindset, but it's short-lived, or the plan didn't work, and now I'm just tired. I'm on medication and I do see a doctor about this, but I still feel like I'm stuck in quicksand. For those of you around my age who's experienced something similar and made it out of this mindset, how? The first comment. I'm 36, and I make $45K a year as a teacher in Detroit. I wake up at 4:30 every morning, get home at 6:30, grade, then lesson plan, talk to parents, or try to. Sometimes shower, repeat. I spend a few thousand on my classroom every year so the kids can have pencils, folders, notebooks, science project supplies, and sometimes I do also buy them shoes or uniform stuff. I'm trying to teach third graders who are reading at a K1 level and are chronically absent and have big traumas occurring at home. With my salary, I can barely afford rent on a 2-bedroom in one of the worst areas of the city, next to an actual trap house. Gunshots every night. All of my clothes are 5 to 10 years old, worn out. My shoes are honestly embarrassing. I can't afford anything fun or nice, like a new coat or bags or shoes. I usually just buy some underwear and socks each year, and all my stuff is old. My car will probably die soon. In 2019, I was ready to settle down because I had some savings, and I had a lot of options for a partner who made a living wage. My entire life, the thing I wanted most was a child. I was very excited to finally feel like this was an option. In March 2020, my security guard at my old school was super sick, but not allowed to leave because there was an airbag stolen from the staff lot. This was right before the school shut down because of COVID. You couldn't buy masks or hand sanitizer or even rubbing alcohol, so I was just filling up old sanitizer bottles with vodka for my kids. A few days after the schools shut down, I got sick. Really, really sick. Co-workers were on vents, and one died. My dad would come over in full PPE to take my vitals, and I was triaged with O2 of 89 to 90 because of my age. And I do remember the hospital had like ET plastic tunnels set up, and all the walls were lined with rolling carts and people on them. I don't know if they were super sick or dead. Aside from this, I only have a few memories from these months. Watching the Roku screensaver because I was too weak to reach the remote, and crawling on all fours to try to get to the bathroom, and sometimes passing out or pissing myself on the way. I went through all my savings because I couldn't work. I developed long COVID, and now I have heart damage on medication and autoimmune hepatitis. I went into massive medical debt with all of the cardiologist visits and testing and no health insurance. I don't even know what I'm ever going to do with all of that. LOL. I'm still paying off grad school student loans. I'm a woman, and I basically see no future. I'm 36 now, and will probably never have kids. I can't imagine ever even dating. I wouldn't trust anyone who wanted to be with me. I'm also now on an antidepressant, and I am only able to sleep with trazodone, because otherwise I will have panic attacks. The only good thing is that I will almost certainly die before I have to worry about retirement. Whew. I do think that the most difficult part about all of this is knowing that no one is even trying. I think that's the most difficult part. That I would rather live in a society that was trying and failing than living in this, where there's just no attempt at all. It's sort of wild to think about that we are going to experience a dramatic cultural shift simply because people are going to die. Like, I know for myself, like anyone my age or older, or younger rather, like, we think these boomers are demented. Like, literally. I think that there's like significant dementia, like lead poisoning going on. Because how do you see these stories or hear these stories and just fall back into nothing? tell them to just buck up or work hard. Like, it's embarrassing. But we're fairly embarrassing people. Compton writes, I feel that last bit. I'm weirdly grateful that I may die before I'm too old. Yeah, I mean, I think that we are just to make our peace with it, you know? I think that's a big reason why I do this. Is that we just... A big reason why I do this, you know, is just so that I can make my peace with it. And I can just get on with living, you know? So I don't have to carry all this around. It does build up, you know? The build up is slower, so it's not so overwhelming. I find that I can go out and actually live and talk to people and maintain my composure. But I don't really feel like I've got to give people an earful so much anymore. June. Did you know that the Franco Canuck and the Anglo Canuck have a specialized people hunting team fed on beaver meat and maple syrup till they lust for human flesh, called the Mounties? Well done. Hold on. Has a new bookshelf. Who has actually been really wonderful in the Twitch chat here, I have to say. You seem like a delightful person, honestly, has a new bookshelf. Do you have any advice on how to respond to a person who has mindset defined by a belief that LGBTQ people are in need of a cure, don't need any protection and legal equity? They came with such responses after I posted in a Discord server a news story about the LGBTQ-free zones in Poland. I mean, you're just fighting against, like, God, right? Like there's like, what are you curing? Right? Like, I feel like we've done ourselves a big disservice in the society by creating this idea of a mental illness. Like even the phrasing of it. And certainly there's, like, people who are in a state that we would prefer they not be in, right? And that we wager they would prefer they not be in. You know what I mean? And certainly we should try to help people at least cope and deal with the circumstances that they find themselves in. But even if it is a mental illness, even if it was a mental disorder or a mental illness, right? Isolation and exclusion is not a solution, right? It's not a solution. Like, it's a terrible way to look at the world. Like, one of the things that I always recommend people do is actually just kind of agree with what the person is suggesting. And you'll find pretty quickly that most of the time, if you find yourself agreeing with their position, there's a so what afterwards. Right? If you just concede the position and just say, okay, let's pretend, right? And this is us pretending, so everybody can pretend, right? Nobody's planting a flag here. But let's pretend like being gay or trans or bi or any of that is a mental illness. Whatever that means, whatever a mental illness is, this poorly ill-defined sort of concept. But let's just say it. Okay, so it's a mental illness. So what do you do with mentally ill people in your society? Oh, you isolate them, you separate them, you put them in little boxes and put them in little cages. You force pills on them. Is this an appropriate way to treat the mentally ill? Is this how we should be doing this? Do you think? Or do you think that you're just othering people? And it's just easy to other people who have significant enough mental illnesses that they can't successfully fight back? Like, I reject the premise entirely that people who have different sexual orientations than the binary male, female, straight perspective have a mental illness. But even if you do accept that they have a mental illness, it's still wrong. It's still wrong to treat them that way. It's still wrong to separate them from the society. It's still wrong to isolate them. And more or less, that's what I think the whole mental illness phrasing is about. I think it is about excluding people. Like, it is about demonizing different types of people's perceptions and different types of people's experiences. Right? It's like, if it's not about sympathy, certainly. It's not about building an understanding of what they're going through. Right? You're calling it a mental illness, for God's sakes. I mean, what's more disgraceful than taking people who are experiencing a mental illness and isolating them? What could be possibly more disgraceful than that? Right? Maybe if you executed them, just purged them, right? That would be more disgraceful. But if you actually genuinely believed that these people were suffering from a mental illness, like if you actually believed that they had a sickness, right? Like, what, isolation, separation, enforced cures? Is this the way to treat people? Is this appropriate? I should hope not. So I feel like the exposure of the fraudulence is within the accusation itself, as it usually is. As it usually is. Yes, and to reaffirm, being LGBTQ is not a mental illness. Correct. Maybe there is a case to separate people who pose a danger to people. That's a different conversation, right? If a person's going to pick up a knife and stab somebody, that's a different conversation, right? Is capitalism a mental ailment? Yes. I mean, there is a worship element to it, and we're seeing it more and more. That guy, good to see you. CH, good to see you. Thomas Saz explains the history of it fairly well. Psychiatry begins as a noble compassion project, but its goal is to end the othering and achieve psychodiversity. If you read any modern psychiatry theory, it acknowledges all this and admits it's necessary to be a philosopher before you try to be a doctor. In Germany, they literally require a philosophy degree first. Yeah, how do you know what's nuts versus what's just more recent ideas? My feeling has always been... like, if you're not actually pulling out a knife, if you're not actually trying to harm people, right? If you're not actually trying to do physical damage to someone, then I don't even know why we're talking, right? Like, we can talk about the experience you're having, but I think even putting words like illness on the table is a bad call, generally. Like, I don't know why there's this judgment built into the prescription. Right? I don't know why there's this negative judgment that gets put in the conversation right from the beginning. That it's more accurate to say that this is just their experience. This is their mental experience. That there are different ways to experience reality. And as long as they're not picking up a knife or having delusions or thinking that they're fighting a demon or something, right? And they're not going to hurt themselves and others, then I just don't think that there's much by way of involvement. Like, outside of the way that we all get involved in our own mental health and our own mental situation. Like, that to me seems to be the hard truth of it. Like, yeah, insanity is a social construct. Its conception varies from culture to culture. Yeah, that's right. Which is why I focus on the action. Right? Like, what are you doing? Like, what are you going to do? Because if what you're going to do is stand there and talk about it, Oh, okay. Like, okay. So you're just like literally everybody else. And you're just going to be like, hey, this is my interests. This is what I'm interested in doing. This is what I feel, and this is what I think, and this is the experience that I have in the world. And you know, when I see the color blue, I actually see the color yellow. Like when I as a man, when I see another man, I get all tingly. Like these are the experiences that I have, and if I'm gonna act on it, it's just in a way to pursue what I enjoy. And as long as they consent, right? As long as I walk across the room and look at that other man and say, "Hey, do you want to hang out?" And they're like, "Yeah, let's do that." Then we're all good, right? Like, what's the issue here? What's the actual problem, right? So they're just like literally everybody else. And then they just go to the doctor and they're like, yeah, here's my situation and I'm having this kind of thing and this is what I think and this is how I am and how do I cope with what's going on and all this. And the doctor goes, okay, this is the thing you're experiencing and here's how you cope. Would you like some medication maybe? That might help you and all that kind of stuff. Maybe not, maybe yes. So on and so forth and so on the conversation goes, right? But to begin that conversation by saying there's something wrong with you, by beginning that conversation by saying there's an error in your mainframe, right? You're off the base. You have a mental illness. I think is to intentionally subjugate people. It's to say to a certain class of people that you are inferior. We have decided that this category means that you are an inferior person and that you do not meet the bar and that you need to elevate yourself to the rest of us. It's a very supremacist worldview. I think that's where I'm leading with that. And I'm finally finding myself walking down the path towards. It's a very supremacist worldview. That you have a mental illness. Like, I think the only time you should even get into that territory is, like, are you hurting people? Are you going to hurt yourself? Are you having, like, psychotic episodes? Where you're having delusions, causing damage, right? Sleepy Alex, good to see you, my man. Capitalism, kill capitalism, or it will kill you. Yeah. I mean, that's what this is all about, my man. I'm working my ass off, trying to move the meter even a little bit. It'd be great. Yeah, if you're a danger to yourself or others. But even then, like, it's just sort of a weird position to put yourself in, I think, as a person who's diagnosing these things, right? Like, here is a person who's created by the forces of the universe, and you're going to stand in front of your creator and say you did something wrong. You know? Like, it's a pretty astounding position to put yourself in as like a doctor or as a psychiatrist to tell the forces of the universe themselves, this is an illness. This is bad. And I understand why we do it, because there is a real thing going on. Like, it's not you can't hand wave it away. People have psychotic episodes. There was a guy, Sleepy Alex writes, love your beard, man. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. You're not even getting the full glory of it, honestly. Here, check it. You can... There you go. You're welcome. Like, there was a fellow who was on a Greyhound bus just north of my small town, where I used to live, Portage la Prairie, Manitoba. And he had like a mental break, a psychotic episode. And I don't know if he had a knife with him or if he managed to get one, but he ended up decapitating someone on the bus. Like, literally, like, took this knife and chopped someone's head off on the Greyhound bus. It's like a total mental break. Like a complete mental breakdown, right? that happens. That's real. That's a real thing. And to me, like, that's where you start to talk about an illness. Like, that's where you start to talk about that kind of shit. But, like, boys that like boys and girls that like girls. Like, I feel like using the language of mental illness for someone like that is like doing a disservice to the entire profession. I can't imagine what it must be like to be a professional psychologist and have people walking around, or professional psychiatrist, and have people walking around saying that homosexuality is a mental illness. It's like, oh my God, please do not denigrate my profession like that. Like, don't insult my profession like that. Like, you're weakening. Like, if I walk into a room and say this person is suffering from a mental illness, this is the strongest language that you can use. You can't use stronger language, right? This person is suffering from a mental illness because they're chopping people's heads off on Greyhound buses. And if you say that to somebody and they hear that's the same as gay, like, fuck off. Get the fuck out of here. People wonder why there's such a break of increased breakdowns. I mean, that's the system of capital, right? We're all exhausted. There's no hope in sight. The whole thing's breaking apart. And I think the thing that's making it the worst, and I never hear anybody say this, but I think it's absolutely the worst part, is knowing that no one gives a shit. That the entire thing is breaking apart and we're not even trying. Like if Elon Musk, Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg were like making big proclamations and big statements, being like, we've got to do something about this. This is a serious issue. We've actually got to take it seriously. If fucking Taylor Swift, Woman of the Year, was like, we've got to do something serious about this. This is serious. We've got to actually do something. Right? And the owners of the society were actually pushing their resources in the direction to confront the issue in a serious way, and we were failing, I would feel a lot better about it. I would. I think I would feel a lot better about it. I'd be like, okay, like, we understand that we got ourselves into a dilly of a pickle here. We understand that we're gonna catch the edge of the blade on it, maybe even a little bit more than the edge of the blade, right? But at least the owners of the society and the society is configuring itself in order to confront it, in order to deal with it and try to mitigate. No one's doing that. No one. And the people who are standing up pretending like they're interested in doing it, that'd be people like Justin Trudeau, Stephen Guilbeault, right? They're such obvious grifters, or just dupes, just too stupid to realize that what they're doing doesn't matter. That what they're doing mainly right now is population management, so that they can continue destroying the place. That's the worst part. To me, is knowing that we're doing it and we're doing it on purpose, right? I mean, they might state it, like Justin Trudeau states it, but they're not doing anything. They're not, like, Bill Gates is just buying up farmland. Elon Musk is literally shooting rockets into space constantly. Like, he's helping the militarize space. And Buffett is just fucking there for the money, man. Like, he doesn't give a fuck. Like, they might talk about it. Doesn't mean anything. Right? They're not divesting. They're not actually getting together and actually doing something actually. They're not mobilizing, like, the hundreds of billions of dollars of capital that they have in order to actually do anything. They're just building bunkers for themselves. That's all they're doing. And so that's the worst part, is just knowing that we're living in a society that's just fucking doing nothing. Just doing nothing. So, yeah, they just use their money to get more. Yeah. And it's going to get them nothing in the end of it all, because that's how it goes. Has a new bookshelf. Has a new bookshelf's asking some like really esoteric questions up in here. Can you give your take on abolishing the two-parent family unit? I don't really. I mean, I think that the way that the two-parent family unit came about was fairly repressive. I'm reading a book right now called Caliban and the Witch, where the author goes through the rise of capitalism and the impact that it had on women. It's the feminist perspective of the rise of capitalism. And she rightly critiques Marx for not having a critique or not stating anything on this line. And she really fills in the gaps in a lot of ways and talks about how women become subordinate because the work that they do ceases to become waged, even. That it becomes housework, and housework becomes free labor, basically. And the only way for a woman to be protected in the society was by having a husband, right? And then you would essentially do the housework, and you basically end up working for your husband, and your husband goes out and gets a wage. And that's the way it was configured. That's the way it was done. This configuration is obviously, in my view, not great, right? It's very repressive, very anti-women, very anti-empowerment, very anti-freedom, right? Like, it doesn't allow women to actually operate, even in a free market capitalist sense. I don't really have opinions in terms of abolishing the two-parent family unit. I do think that there have definitely been negatives in regards to, like, the Christian fascists have done a really good job of building into the mindset of their adherents that men are at the top of the food chain and women are to subordinate themselves. And a man is the king of his castle, right? And all of that kind of stuff. A lot of just arrogance. A lot of arrogance in there. And so, like, but I don't necessarily support the concept. I don't necessarily support the concept of actively working to abolish this, if you understand what I mean. Like, if you give people the freedom to have food and shelter of their own accord, without any strings attached, without anything that says you must do X, you must do Y in order to attain food and shelter. If you just say to the populace, you're going to have access to food and shelter, that's just how it's going to go, then the whatever configuration comes out of that, right? Whatever configuration comes out of that, I think is appropriate. Because that's how humans are going to do. Right? Like, I'm not sold on the idea of a two-parent family unit in a home, walls and all of that. I do think that there are some people who are. I think that there are some people who are just like, absolutely, that's what I want. I want a wife. I want a kid. I want to live in a house. I want to go to my job. And that's what I want. Right? I think there are people who are sold on that idea. And I think that there are women who are sold on that idea. I think that, like, the trad wife thing is real. And honestly, great. Cool. Like, cool. You do you. Off you go. But I'm not necessarily convinced that that's what people would actually do. I think that there are many different ways of configuring all of this kind of stuff. And I think it would be easy to demonize them, and I think it would be easy to smash them apart, which is why they don't happen and why they don't occur. Right? It would be easy to get into the minds of the majority of Americans that something sinister is happening, that they're abusing children. I think it would be easy to do that. And I think it would, like, you could just picture someone like Matt Walsh, right? Like, there's like a community that shows up and they actually have mutual aid and they're raising kids not through this dynamic, but through a more communal kind of way, right? That there are more communal relationships going on, and there's a more open society and a more open way of doing this kind of stuff. I think that you could easily get somebody like Matt Walsh being like, they're abusing kids. What they're doing there, they're exposing them to sex. It's like pedophilia. How's that any different than pedophilia? Like, I think it'd be easy. And I think a lot of people would buy into it, and a lot of people would go down that line. It'd be easy to just send people in there and smash it apart, which they would, and they have in the past done that very thing. So and I mean, right now we're in this sort of situation where it's like, who's having kids even? Like, I've got an article up here. Canada housing crisis, 71% of renters have given up on owning a home. Like, I wonder why the birth rate's down. Jeez. Wonder what's going on, guys. Why is the birth rate down, do you think? Yeah, it takes a village to raise one kid. Yeah. No, but this is the thing. CH writes, tens of billions doesn't solve these big problems, though trillions do, so they really only influence trillion-dollar moves as celebrities or prototypers. Like, Musk can push EVs, but can't make them standard. He can commission the Giga press or open patents and such, speed it up a couple of years, maybe a decade. I think that this is a misunderstanding of what Elon Musk is doing, right? Elon Musk is a grifter. He's a con man, exclusively. He is a salesman, exclusively. He's trying to sell a product. That's all he's doing, right? And he's using your concern or your fear or whatever language you like to use towards climate change in order to sell you a product that he knows he can't deliver on, right? It would be nice if he could. Like, I'm sure he's sitting there being like, oh, sweet, this would be sweet if this actually happened and this was actually cool, right? But he knows that he can't deliver on it. Not in any way that's significant, right? He knows that, right? If he knows how to make one of these, he knows that he can't make enough of these. Like, he knows, right? But he's doing it anyway because he's a salesman. Because he's a fucking con man. He's not actually trying to solve climate change. He's trying to make money off of your concern about climate change. That's it. None of these guys are actually interested in solving the climate change problem. None of them. 0%. All we are getting from these guys is salesmanship trying to make money in the midst of the decline. That's what it actually is. Elon Musk is not making EVs in order to confront the climate change crisis. 0%. 0%. And again, right? This whole Mars narrative, this whole we're going to go to Mars and we're colonizing Mars and all this Mars this, Mars that, it is total bullshit. It is con artistry. It is a grift. It is a game. They are militarizing space. That is what they are doing. They don't give a fuck about Mars. If they do give a fuck about Mars, it's literally to set like a gun turret up there so they can shoot down Chinese rockets. They do not give a fuck about Mars, right? They care about militarizing space so that they are the ones that if anybody takes the step into the next phase of human development, it's going to be us, goddammit. It's going to be us. And we're going to make sure that we put that jackboot on the back of everybody else. We own the planet, motherfuckers. We own this place. You just live here. That's the American perspective. And Elon Musk is going to make sure that there's a satellite system in space and that there's a weapon system in space so that if anybody tries to go up there and try to do anything serious and try to represent humanity in any kind of way to anything, to anywhere, to anybody, they'll blow it up. That's what they're doing. That's what Elon Musk is all about. He doesn't give a fuck about climate change and he doesn't give a fuck about Mars. He's a salesman. He's put in front of us to do the little dancing show, to be like, haha, yep, I'm certain. Like, can you imagine if the American military was doing what Elon Musk was doing? Like, this is how you know that it's a fucking grift. Like, take everything Elon Musk is doing. Every single thing. Put it in your mind space, right? Mars, EVs, the fucking boring tunnel. Same thing with Bezos, by the way. Drones, right? Building a drone distribution chain, all that stuff. Building huge, enormous blimps that can spit out hundreds of drones, right? And then go, okay, it's the United States military doing it. Because guess what, guys? It's the United States military doing it. They're just the front men. Like, if shit gets real, if shit gets crazy, what, you think the United States military isn't going to go, okay, Jeff Bezos, we're taking those blimps, we're going to jam all those drones in there, and we're going to send them over to Detroit. Yeah, they're going to do that. That's great. Thanks, Chloe Catastrophe. First time chat, first comment, strong first comment from Chloe Catastrophe. Pretty strong. I love it. Even if you believe it, I love that you've said it. It's so great. The United States has never done anything wrong. That's exact. I needed that right there. That's great. When can you name one time? The United States has never done anything wrong in the history of the United States. It's the greatest system that's ever been a system. The United States, greatest country that's ever existed in the history of countries, you know? And we know that's true because look at how big it is. It's so big. It's the greatest. It's the greatest country in the world. The greatest country in the world. USA. USA. Oh yeah, man. Every time I see anything that these rich guys do, I think to myself, that's the United States military doing that. Like, even Bill Gates. Like, I think Bill Gates has, like, a couple of things going on. But, like, you think the United States military is just looking at him buying up all that farmland and going, yep, it makes total sense that an independent private owner should have access to all of the food. We here at the United States military have no problem whatsoever with that idea. Like, I don't buy it. Like, I don't buy it at all. Like, there's just no way that that's true. Like, the United States military is gonna step in there. Like, there is going to be a moment where shit's gonna go so far off the rails and go so fucking haywire that the United States military is gonna step in and they're gonna look at Bill Gates' son, the inheritor of all of this shit, and they're gonna say, "So you're gonna do what we say, right?" And he's probably gonna go, "Yeah, of course." Like, and it's just going to go that way, if it hasn't already. Like, I just think it's so weird that people still think we're living in this, like, private entrepreneurship, largest military in the world. Certainly the CIA doesn't walk into these guys' rooms and tell them things. That doesn't happen. What are you talking about, Hyuckles? Like, sure, bud. Whatever you say. Israel has also never done anything wrong. Chloe Catastrophe. Laying out another one. Canada isn't even real. Have you ever met anyone from Canada? I don't think so. You know, that's a good point, Chloe Catastrophe. I don't think I've ever met anybody from Canada. Real solid points coming from... You know what, Chloe Catastrophe, you've convinced me. You've absolutely convinced me. The United States never done anything wrong. Canada doesn't exist. It's just another part of America, obviously, right? Canada is just the word we say for the state that America's had. That's all, right? It's not a real place. Oh, hey, be nice. Be nice in the chat, okay? Be nice in the chat. I do ban people. Like if you start using strong language, I ban you. So please keep it nice in the chat, okay? I don't mind if you guys talk to each other, even if you get like hackles up, that's fine. But like if you can't say it to your mom, don't say it in the chat. Someone named Stop Animal Murder Torture. It's absurd to say homosexuals should have a right to marriage too, though. What are you talking about? Oh, I see what you're doing. Okay, never mind. I'm not going to get involved in that conversation. You guys are doing your own thing. Yeah, Israel has also never done anything wrong and is also the greatest country in the world. That's right. Israel. 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 Gates' military objectives are small nuclear reactors and control of vaccines and mandating them. USA is presently wildly vulnerable to bioattack due to the anti-vaxxer, anti-masker free dummies. I mean, the United States is the one creating all that shit, so... Like, like, China's probably got some of that shit going on, but... Canada is the secret state. Israel is the secret capital of U.S. real. Yeah, has a new bookshelf. Why don't you restate your question so I can see it again? Because I feel like the Twitch chat just lost its brain. Oh, I found a really good source, by the way, on the Holodomor thing. I just want to share this real quick. It's got like real solid quotes. Literally Stalin's quotes saying we've got to do something about this famine. Send as much grain as you can. Yeah, the Political Bureau believes the shortage of seed grain in Ukraine is many times worse than what was described in Comrade Khazar's telegram. Therefore, the Political Bureau recommends the Central Committee of the Communist Party of Ukraine to take all measures within its reach to prevent the threat of failing to sow field crops in Ukraine. Signed the Secretary of the Central Committee, Joseph Stalin. Like literally just like, bro, like we gotta deal with this. Let's go. Like, this is the thing that I love about this Holodomor thing. It's literally like, we have evidence of Stalin being like, we got to deal with this. This is a problem. Let's go. Let's get food in there, man. We got quote after quote of him, right? Not a single quote of him being like, let's starve these Ukrainians, the way that we have from like fucking Churchill, right? The way that we have from like the Americans, the Canadians, the way that we have from Netanyahu talking about this genocide right now that's happening in front of us in Gaza. Like not a scrap, not a single thing. Literally, it's like we took a look at census data from the years 1934 to 1935, and we decided because of the discrepancy that existed in Article 4, subsection B5, that 35 billion people died of Stalin's giant spoon. It's literally their argument. Like that's literally their argument. Like I lost it at the end, but literally their argument is that we took a look at some census data, misinterpreted the data on purpose to say that this 100 bazillion people happened, therefore intentional genocide. Like it's just wild. Like these are the lies that they're willing to tell you. And it's literally the Nazis that spread this shit around, and we're still talking about it. I talked about how to answer a guy calling LGBT are diseased, yeah, and are genetically impaired, no rights protector. It was a take of, oh, this Stop Animal Murder and Torture guy in Discord. So, like, no. Being LGBTQ is not a disease or a genetic impairment, right? It's literally just part of being a species and being alive, right? Like literally every species that has ever existed exhibit this behavior and exhibit this quality. Like, it's just whether or not we want to purge it or not. Like, that's all. And I suggest that we don't. I think it's a waste of time. I think it's a waste of resources. I think it's a waste of energy. I think it wastes, and also I think it makes your society worse. Right? No, it's not a genetic disorder or mental disorder at all. No, what a ridiculous position. What a childish position. First of all, it's not a genetic disorder. You have no science to back that up whatsoever. Source required. Where's your source for this? Where's your genetic disorder source? Right? Like there's certainly a genetic thing going on, obviously, right? But for you to call it a disorder is just you revealing your bigotry, right? It's no different than saying women are inferior. Like is being a woman a mental disease? Is being a woman a mental disorder? Is it a genetic disorder to be a woman? Why not? You have no. I'm not the one making the claim. You're the one making the claim. You have to find a source for it. You're the one making the claim that homosexuality is a genetic disorder. It's your claim. You go find a source. And if you're not going to, then goodbye. But it is bigotry. Like, it's just basic bigotry, right? Like, there's a person who is different than me. They are inferior. It's just basic one-to-one bigotry. There's no reason to pretend like it's not. Like, it's very simple, very straightforward. There is a person who is different than me somehow. They are inferior. That is basic bigotry. You're not interested in finding out the science. You're not interested in looking into this kind of stuff. You need a source for human beings being heterosexual. Yes. Because human beings are not exclusively heterosexual. Just like most animal species are not exclusively heterosexual. You can see homosexuality throughout everything. No, you're really just admitting, dude, that you're just dumb. Like, it's real straightforward, right? Yeah. I just think that you're a very dumb person. Again, I'm not a liberal. Right? The name of the channel is The Canadian Commie. So, again, you're a very dumb person. Like, you're very revealing here. Like, this is pretty basic level one-to-one. Nope. Like, I'm sure that you think I'm a liberal because you're not a very intelligent person. Right? You're clearly a bigot. Right? Like, just a very basic, just very basic one-to-one, man. Like, not different than saying black people have a genetic disorder or are inferior. Not different than saying women are inferior. It's the same argument, right? Because humans are not made to be exclusively heterosexual. There's heterosexuality within humanity, but there's also homosexuality, obviously. You just decide to call that homosexuality a mental illness or a genetic disorder, right? But it's there, right? Is it there or is it not? Right. Look, I know you're struggling to keep up, right? But do try. Here, I'll go real slow for you, right? I'll go real slow for you so that you can keep up. I know that you're struggling. No. Stop typing. Stop typing. Okay? Because we're going to go through it so that you can understand what's happening in front of you. Okay? We're going to go nice and slow. Nice and easy. Real basic. We're all randomly generated, right? Nobody asked to be here, right? We're all here, right? Like, hello, hi, how are you? I'm here. You're here. We're all here. We don't know why, right? We just got generated. We got generated by people who had sex for whatever reason, right? Whatever thing that they were pursuing, they did. Someone got knocked up. Here you are. Boom. Well, within that process of you being spawned in randomly with whatever random attributes you have, right? Maybe you're white. Maybe you're black. Maybe you're a man. Maybe you're a woman. Maybe you're straight. Maybe you're gay. Whatever attributes you spawned in with, those are the attributes that you spawned in with. Nothing you can do about it. Nothing. You're here. And so, to insist that one of those attributes, any one of those attributes, of you randomly spawning into reality is somehow a disorder or a illness, is to put yourself into a position where you are proclaiming your insight, perception, and intelligence to be greater than that of your creator. That is the truth of the position that you find yourself in. That you are attempting to come into my chat and insist to me that the homosexual people that I know, that I work with, that I live with, that I speak with, that I play with, that I spend time with, that I laugh with, whose presence I enjoy, are inferior to me, and that I should look at them as inferior. Well, don't get caught up on the religion, because you are created. So you're creator of the universe or whatever it is. You can secularize it. That's fine. Doesn't matter. You're just attempting to derail it because you know you're feeling something right now, right? So you're attempting to displace that feeling, and I suggest that you don't. Right? You can secularize that statement. You're made by a creator. Inferior, your word, not mine. Correct. I'm fine with that. But that is your position. You're taking people who are not you are taking people who are your equals and you're making them inferior, and you're subjugating them. You're putting them into a class that they don't belong to. And you're doing it because of your own reasons. And I just suggest that you don't. I suggest that you take the perspective that these people are spawning in randomly, that the secular universe is just randomly generating people as it does, right? And I suggest that you just get rid of this position that you are trying to hold on to that pretends like you know better. Like, there's nothing there. It's a purposeless pursuit. It has no foundation. You're starting from an assumption, though, right? Like, you're beginning with a conclusion and then working towards the conclusion, finding evidence to support your conclusion. And that's not science. Right? You've jumped to an assumption, right? Like, that's what you've done. Homosexuality is a genetic disorder or a mental disorder. I proclaim the conclusion. Well, is it? Actual science would begin by seeing what's actually going on. And if you actually look out into the animal kingdom, if you actually look out through history, cultural history, you'll find that homosexuality persists. Homosexuality is everywhere. It's an aspect of creation. It's an aspect of being alive. It's just an aspect of what it is. Here it is. But if your position is that this is a defect that should be purged or cured, I think it's a very dark path to follow. That's not necessary. That's truly unnecessary, and can only lead to heartbreak and destruction. That what you must be doing is looking at someone who is different than you and othering them and saying they are different than me, and so I'm going to treat them differently. And you have found this language to use to create an argument, to make you sound intelligent. But what you're doing is not coming from a place of intelligence. That if it was coming from a place of intelligence, you would begin by saying, okay, there's people who exhibit homosexuality, and that persists throughout nature, and it persists throughout reality, and these people were randomly spawned in, and I don't know more than my creator. I don't know more than the universe. I don't know why they're here, but they don't know why they're here, and I don't know why I'm here. And so, who am I to judge them? Who am I to put myself in a position where I denigrate their existence because of the happenstance of their creation? Especially when the happenstance of their creation is observable throughout all of creation. It's an unintellectual position to take. And so what you're doing, and you're going to be better off. You're going to be better off the sooner you admit it. The sooner that you admit that what is happening, the sooner that you admit that what is happening is an emotional journey and not an intellectual one, the better you're going to be. The sooner you realize that what you're doing is projecting a feeling you have inside onto somebody else, the better off you're going to be. That when you interact with a gay person or see a gay person, right, or hear about a gay person, it's creating a sensation inside of yourself. You're having an emotional response to it, and you don't understand what that emotional response is. And you're afraid of that. You're admitting that it is emotional. So my suggestion is to pay more attention to the emotional aspect of it, because that's where the journey is going to be most fruitful for you. Because I'm dead certain that you don't have your ducks in a row on this. That when you are seeing a homosexual person, and when you are seeing a gay person in your space or around you or on the internet, it's doing something to you, and you don't know what. And you don't know what. And rather than doing the very difficult work, and it is very difficult work, it is in fact the most difficult work that a person can do, is dealing with themselves. There is nothing more difficult in this plane of reality, in this existence, than dealing with yourself. And so instead of doing that very difficult work and putting your head down and grinding it in and accepting that this is something that you are feeling and that you are dealing with, you are choosing to take that energy and project it outward onto someone else. And you're finding language and you're finding a way to make it sound rational when it isn't. And so my suggestion is to just deal with yourself. Don't bother other people with this. Because this is a you problem. Well, that's my case, my man. Go deal with yourself. That's how a person grows up, and you're not going to grow up otherwise. Homophobia is a big one. That's a tough one. That's a real tough one. It's deeply, deeply emotional is what it is. And the people who are experiencing it, I used to have that same thing. That's the reason why I spend so much time talking to these people, right? Because I used to have that very thing. Now, why is that not working? Let's just do a quick... Oh, I think I did do it. I used to have that same thing. I grew up in a very religious environment. I grew up surrounded by a institutionalized homophobia, right? And when you grow up around an institutionalized homophobia, it's very, very difficult to break out of it. And it's very tough to... because there's a lot of different fears that exist. There's a lot of different fears that exist on the path of breaking free from your homophobia. It's a very, very difficult thing to do. Yeah, LGBT rights are non-negotiable. Homophobes and transphobes don't deserve platform. Well, I don't think they belong in mental institutions, but certainly, I actually think the best thing, as someone who was at one point himself a homophobe, as someone who shared these views, I'm happy to talk about this. Like, I really am. Well, and CH, this is why. Because I see in these people myself, because I used to be like this for a long time, that I was in a situation where I was surrounded by institutionalized homophobia. That homophobia was wrong in my church, homophobia was wrong in my school, or sorry, being homosexual was wrong in my church, being homosexual was wrong in my school, being homosexual was wrong in my culture. I lived in a small town, and being a homosexual was a black mark. And there was a little bit of talk about it in this manner. There was a little bit of talk about it as like a mental illness or any of this kind of stuff, or a genetic disorder. But there was a lot of talk about it from a religious perspective, right? There's a lot of talk about it from a philosophical perspective. And for me, what was holding me back was that I was in a fundamentalist Christian society. And the fundamentalist Christian society, fundamentalism forces you to accept everything. It is an all or nothing proposition. You can't be reformist as a fundamentalist. And so I had to die on every hill. Fundamentalists have to die on every hill. Because if you find one thing wrong, then everything goes. Right? If you find one issue, then everything follows. Because that's the nature of fundamentalism. It's all or nothing. And so homosexuality was the hill that I did die on and had to be reborn as a non-fundamentalist. Because I started to interact with homosexuals. And God bless them. I had many serious and frank conversations with them, and they were all to an individual. They were all to an individual very patient and kind. Not a drop, maybe confusion, but not a drop of hatred. And looking back on the time that I spent, especially in university, I can say with confidence that I lost a lot of good opportunities to know a lot of good people. And I lost a lot of good opportunities to work with classical actors and writers and directors and brilliant authors. I lost a lot of opportunities, both professionally and personally, because of my homophobia. And it wasn't until I was literally out of my home province of Manitoba, and I was here in the city of Toronto, surrounded by diversity, surrounded by different cultures, different people, going to another arts school, a more focused arts school. And I remember the day. It was October 2nd. It was Nuit Blanche here in Toronto. That's a festival of art displays. And I had bought a bottle of peach schnapps and was walking the streets of Toronto, looking at all of these exhibits, drinking my bottle of peach schnapps. I was never much of a drinker. The fundamentalism. And I walked into an exhibit, and all it was in a movie theater, and it was Buster Keaton films. Just Buster Keaton film after Buster Keaton film after Buster Keaton film. And I just sat in that theater, and I watched Buster Keaton. His brilliance, his crispness, his intelligence, his perception, his athleticism, his skill. And I thought to myself, what if he was gay? Here's a man who is doing things that I wouldn't even dare to think of even doing. Risking his life so you can have a laugh. And if he was gay, would that make him bad? Would that diminish him? In our view? In my view? And I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't hold on to it. I didn't have the energy anymore. It takes an enormous amount of energy to be a bigot. Clench your fist. Clench that fist and hold on tight. And see how long you can before you get too tired and have to stop. Well, that's what it's like to be a bigot. You're holding on to it. You're holding on to it. And I walked out of that theater a different person. And I had to start again. I think it's the greatest success I've ever had. It's finally admitting that I was wrong. That my church was wrong. That my school was wrong. That my father was wrong. And so when I find these people, and when they come across my way, I'm very sympathetic. I'm very sympathetic. Not simply because I know that they're trapped. I know that they've trapped. I know that they have been trapped. But also because I know how difficult it is to get out of the trap. It took me years of intentionally challenging it, of alienating people, ruining friendships, pushing forward, demanding explanations, demanding insight, demanding perspectives. I had to push hard. And in the end, it would have been easier without it. That in the end, it was a burden that I was carrying. That I look back on my life, and I know for a fact that my life would have been desperately different, dramatically different, and significantly improved had I met people who were homosexual and gone, oh, okay. Well, What do you guys want to do today? And that's where the sympathy lies. For the damage that they will do to themselves is greater than anything that anyone else can do to them. Somebody random in the chat just asked if I was a drama kid. I have a degree in theater. Thank you very much. And I pursued acting in my younger days before realizing that that was just part of me dealing with myself. That we don't really have a method. And one of the things that I've tried to do as I've gotten older is to try to find a method that is more useful and faster and more effective and more precise than traveling around the country antagonizing gay people. Damn, John just daddied this person. I mean, that's what it takes. It takes people leveling. There was a person in my university days who was actually very influential, and I only really realized it in retrospect. How he wasn't the guy who pushed me over the edge, but he definitely was the guy who shook the foundations. And what was so interesting about him is that he didn't shake the foundations by being like, I'm going to go after this guy. He shook the foundations by being an openly homosexual man, being a professional, being excellent at his craft, and being kind to me. I could tell he didn't want anything to do with me, but I think that makes sense, given my position. And when I would ask him questions, he would be very forthright with me. And I'll never forget, one day I just asked him straight. I said, how do you know you're gay? And he just said to me, well, how do you know you're straight? And I said, well, when I look at a woman I find attractive, I'm attracted to her. And he went, well, when I look at a man I find attractive, I'm attracted to him. And it was so simple and so stupid in its simplicity that I had nothing to say to him. I just went, And he went, And I think that might have been the last thing that we ever said to each other. But that really stuck with me. That really, really stuck with me. And if I ever see that man again, I'm going to tell him that I owe him a great debt for his forthrightness and his kindness. Because it's very, very difficult to demonize somebody if they're very, very nice to you. And he wasn't the only one. But he was the one who was willing to deal with me. Everybody else kind of made way. For good reasons. Mayday, I've not yet found a gay person here in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. There might be a reason for that. Yeah. Muslim countries usually have less gay people. The other day I heard a guy claiming that gay is a Western individualist culture, a product of modern liberalism. Yeah, Mayday is getting into something that I think is important for us to discuss, which is the backfiring. The backfire of, I actually shouldn't phrase it this way, because it feels like that's victim blaming. And I should phrase this differently, so I'm going to, and I'm going to start right now. it's because the imperial core, because the leadership of the imperial core embraced the homosexual movement. So the Imperials had a reformation and said it's okay to be gay amongst themselves. Then they went overseas and started carpet bombing other countries. It's pretty natural, I should think, that the countries that you carpet bomb while saying it's okay to be gay might turn around and actually say, maybe it's not. Maybe it's not okay to be gay. Because we're getting our asses carpet bombed here by people who are professing moral superiority. And within that profession of moral superiority lay this language of inclusivity, diversity, that it's okay to be gay. And so it's not a backfire, because it's not the homosexual community and it's not the LGBTQ community doing it. It's the empire co-opting the LGBTQ empire or rhetoric and using it for themselves, and then attempting to enforce it elsewhere. And this is going to lead to a blowback, unfortunately. It's deeply unfortunate that that's the case. Because the only way that you end up with a gay rights movement that succeeds is internally. It's quite literally the only way it works, right? Is just internally. I mean, gay people are more in the closet in Muslim countries. I mean, there are still significant, not just laws, but like cultural problems, right? There's a... Oh, and also somebody at some point complimented my beard. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, in America, where the liberal were arguing, no, in capitalism, we advocate for freedom. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting how freedom only really applies if it's brought by the barrel of a gun, right? Like, freedom seems to have a wall that it needs to move into territory with, right? We need to draw a line around your territory, and then you're free. Right, you're only free if you're within our pen. And if you're outside of that pen, then you're not free. Like, I feel like most Americans have a fairly perverse idea of what freedom actually means. Like, libertarians seem to believe that you are free to sell yourself to the highest bidder. That seems to be the freedom that we're discussing. I would argue that as long as you do not have access to food and shelter, as long as that is withheld from you and there is no method for you to easily secure it, you are not free. And that there is no definition of freedom that has any merit or meaning while people are scrambling around trying to get food and shelter. The freedom to sell yourself to the highest bidder is no freedom whatsoever. Well, this last half hour was a trip down memory lane. But we've reached the end of this one, guys. Happy New Year to each and every one of you. I hope you're all doing really well out there. Always remember, each and every one of you is a quantum being walking around in quantum energy. These billionaires are spending hundreds of billions of dollars in the hopes you'll never realize it. You'll just stay the good little commodity they need you to be. revolt, rebel, repent. Good luck.